and India Forum, and I will be your host for this inaugural section of the event on Connect India in Building Solutions. A couple of housekeeping activities, please. I would request you all to put yourselves on mute. This will allow the speakers to remain uninterrupted in their flow of conversation and make for a better dialogue. I would also request those speakers, as and when they are electing to speak or are invited to speak, to at that point switch on their cameras and their mics so that they are both visible and audible to the entire audience. With that out of the way, once again, a very warm welcome to you all this morning. I'm extremely grateful and privileged that Shri Durga Shankar Mishra, the Secretary in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, has agreed to join us this morning. He will be joining us shortly. In the meantime, we have been requested to continue with the program, and he will join in later. In today's age, where digital connectivity has proven to be a must in order to remain connected anywhere and any place, the topic today of Connect India in Building Solutions is significant. To dwell a little more on this theme, I would like to invite the President of BIF, Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, to deliver the address. To many of us, he needs no introduction, but for the benefit of the others, he is an esteemed industry veteran, a well-recognized expert in the international arena in policy, regulation, and standards, an honorary fellow of IET London, and a good friend. TV, over to you.
Thank you, Rajat. Thank you for the kind words. Good morning and welcome to all of you, to respected Chief Guest, Shri Durga Shankar Mishra, Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, our esteemed other guest speakers and attendees from the TRAI, from the DOT, from BIS, and other government departments and ministries, co-panelists in this inaugural session, Mr. Umang Das, who is Chairman of Foreign Investors India Forum, and a very active member of our FTTX committee. Mr. Sanjeev Bedekar, he is a chairman of this FTTX committee, which is behind this event. And he is also CEO of RANNext Technologies Private Limited. Members of the various real estate associations, builders, architects, resident welfare association members, friends from media, and my dear industry colleagues. I'm really very, very happy to share a few thoughts with you on this occasion to kick off the proceedings. As Rajat said, the recent pandemic has been very useful in one way. It has hit us hard in other ways, but it has provided us sufficient conviction, if that was needed, of the need to have a robust digital infrastructure well in place to ensure that we remain connected and to facilitate a good socio-economic inclusion. It is not just a normal inclusion, the socio-economic digital inclusion that we need in today's world for all people, all citizens of India, with efficient connectivity and providing broadband for all. I think this is a given today. Everybody has accepted it, even the roadside person. Everybody is very, very clear that he needs to be connected. Everybody is looking for a cheap smartphone to get connected. So that's a given. And what we need to appreciate also in the context of the theme for today, which is in-building solutions. This is a digital dialogue about in-building, an in-building dialogue, so to say. And why? Because you all know that 80% of the time, mobile calls are made from within buildings. You may not be traveling on the road. You may not be in a car or a train or anywhere, but even within the house, within the enterprise, company headquarters, you are just finding it more convenient to talk on the mobile. So, and that's a very, very clear fact of the day today. 70 to 80% of the calls are made on the mobile inside buildings. So that places the importance on having very good in-building connectivity. You need to ensure that in today's world, particularly our great friends from DOT are there, our partners in progress, our senior officers. DOT came out with a wonderful, a historic work from home guidelines, policy to make it possible in the COVID for enterprises to function with people working from home. BPOs are the essence of this country, and that all could happen. So that highlights the importance of in-building solutions. And you'd all remember the workshop conducted by the Honorable TRI last year, where along with the participation of the Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry, they went on a clear path of highlighting the criticality of initiatives required to improve quality of service within buildings. That was very thoughtful of them, and it has shown us the way for the industry to go forward and carry on the work to make this possible for everybody. This is a great progressive initiative of the TRAI and MoHUA. I cannot thank them enough for it. And what we are attempting to do today is to, in a small way, carry on that work of dialogue on this to endeavor to continuously improve quality of service. This is very important, not only because 80% of the calls are made today inside buildings. You should also remember, going forward, it's already happening, the number of devices per person or per household is becoming humongous. In fact, in a recent exercise which we are doing as BIF, we came across a startling fact, a likely fact that by 2025, the average number of mobile devices, which includes, by devices, we talk about sensors. You're all aware of IoT, Internet of Things, and that's there today. If you take that into account, you're going to be talking of about 10 devices per person. And that's not far from reality. You just watch it, the way we're going, we're only in 2021. In another 4 years, that's likely to be the case. It may be exceeded. And if that is the case, you can see how magnified the importance of what we are doing today will be. And I would also say that with overall data consumption, traffic, having increased by 36% just in 2020, in the year of the COVID, we've gone up by nearly 40% in data traffic due to heavy internet consumption. And there is definitely a rapidly growing demand for high quality videos, streaming, downloads, etc. Because even this video conference tells you that. You can't do this today unless you have good connectivity. And so frustrating it is if you see the whirring circle on the screen, you're buffering, and so you need quality, you need speed, you need bandwidth. Broadband is all about speed because that is the essence of quality. And I was mentioning even yesterday in another forum, we have a very interesting finding by one of our members of BIF that you need as much as 14 megahertz speed, 14 Mbps speed, 14 Mbps speed as a threshold for a good quality streaming appearance. That's a very important fact you have to bear in mind. That shows how much further we have to go in order to provide enough good quality to all citizens inside buildings. And this being the fact where rural usage is mushrooming. Agreed that broadband connectivity in rural is far below the urban areas. Urban areas is maybe 70, 80%, mobile-wise mainly, and in rural areas about 50%. We have a long way to go. But the fact is, in that 50%, the proportion of video traffic is enormous. Because Many of us don't realize it. The rural person actually needs more video than you and me. We are more literate. We manage with text and languages, etc. They like to listen to the video. It may be a bhajan, it may be a test lesson, whatever. So that is putting more and more pressure on the quality of service, even for rural areas. And you're all hearing of 5G trials in the offing. India's gearing up to embrace 5G. So the demand for robust connectivity is going to get heightened because with 5G, the number of devices is also going to surge. You all know that. Uh, with all this, Wi-Fi has become a very critical technology because in building coverage, it's going to be fixed wireless, it's going to be Wi-Fi because mobile will the penetration within buildings will be less. That's the nature of mobile. You can't help it. And you can't put all the load on mobile. You have to support mobile with good Wi-Fi connectivity, independent of mobile. And that's what the government is trying to do. They have launched the historic PM Vani enterprise, PM Vani initiative, and that's going to take us to a new level completely. And at the enterprise level, the digitalization of production process is critical to keep the economy ticking. That's already right at the beginning, we said that. And we, God forbid, any further disruptions happen, but we have to be prepared for that. As a country, we have to be prepared for that. We have to be prepared for long-term working from home. That's become a new style of life because people are finding that's in many ways more efficient, less expensive. So it's going to stay. Like TCS said, even after this, 75% will be working from home. So we have to be prepared for that and therefore go in for systems and measures which guarantee us acceptable quality level, good quality level for all our people inside buildings. And when talking about that, yesterday we came across another interesting fact which was told to me by one of my colleagues, Devashi. She had heard it in another forum. See, like buildings and all, we all know when we go for building approvals, something we have to show is there is a BIF standard, I believe, for electricals. And if it doesn't conform to that, you don't get approved. So I think the time has come now that we show in building connectivity, net connectivity plan. Does it meet the minimum standards? And there we look to Urban Ministry, BIS, DOT, TRAI to guide us and take us forward on that. Once that sort of thing comes in, then you get a guaranteed starting point. Because without that basic connectivity infrastructure in place while the building is made, you're not going to be able to cater to the optimum quality. And for global competitiveness, we have to be at the best level. I could go on and on, but I think I should leave it to all the subject matter experts to talk and guide us. The esteemed officers from Urban Ministry, from DOT, from TRAI, from BIS, all of them are here. We want to listen to them. So I will be very happy to stop here and conclude. Once again, I would like to specially thank Secretary Shri Durga Shankar Mishra, as well as the entire team of MoHUA, especially Shri R. Srinivas, Advisor TCPA, for the invaluable guidance they have been giving all along, supporting the organizing of this event and guiding us in this way. And as always, we had tremendous support and guidance from DOT and TRAI and other BIS, etc. Before I conclude, I would like to take the liberty of doing one thing, something which my great friend Umang will also appreciate. This is, in a sense, today's event reminds me of 2005. Sorry. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Please carry on, TB.
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. This event today is historic and reminds me of something which happened in 2005, where again, a very historic initiative was launched. That was one of shared towers. 2005, Hotel Oberoi. I had the privilege to be there and leading that initiative. And that again, at that time, was with DOT, Ministry, and Ministry of Urban Affairs. At that time, Minister was the great Mr. Jaipal Reddy. I still treasure the photograph of that. Mr. Jaipal Reddy launching it and this thing. The concept of shared towers was a no for that till that time. And we made that happen because it was said to be competitive. They said we won't share towers. And that day we launched a tower in Rajokri, which had 11 antennas, 11 people sharing. And that marked the beginning. Today it's taken for granted. We can't survive without shared towers. Same thing we are now talking of. Today again, in building solutions, Urban Ministry is there, DOT is there, BI is there, TR is there, TRAI is there. We look to them to kick off this second historic initiative, which makes in-building solutions a given, an accepted fact of minimum quality to standards which are there even as the building is being created. All the best for the rest of the event. I hope it's a useful discussions and you have a good time. All the best to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, TV, for your opening comments. Having set the theme for us, it is an honor again for me to introduce another good friend and veteran of the digital communications industry, Mr. Umang Das, who has around 50 years of very diversified work experience and has been an integral part of the privatization process of the telecoms in the country ever since 1987.
Sir, sorry for interrupting. Hello.
Yes, yes, Mr. Bharadwaj.
Secretary is shortly joining. I have already briefed him about the workshop. So the moment he comes here and sit, and then we'll his address will start.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bharadwaj. We will keep that in mind. Be ready to switch on his camera as soon as he joins us. Thank you so much. So as I was saying, Mr. Umang Das, with his vast knowledge and experience, now serves in various leadership and advisory positions in DIPA, in CII, in ASSOCHAM, and in FIIF, amongst others. Umang, welcome.
Thank you, Rajat. Good morning and welcome to you all. Our respected chief guest, Sri Durga Shankar Mishra, will be joining us shortly. All our esteemed guest speakers and attendees from TRAI, DOT, BIS, and other government departments, expert speakers for today's sessions, Mr. TV Ramachandran, President of Broadband India Forum, Sanjeev and Dheeraj Sharma, Chairman and Co-Chairman of the FTTX Committee, members of the industry associations, real estate associations, builders, architects, consultants, RWA members, media friends, and of course, our dear industry colleagues. I'm naming different groups primarily to show that this is a ecosystem. This is the in-building ecosystem members who all constitute this important group, which is an emerging opportunity in the country. Undoubtedly, the year 2020 will go down in world history as an unforgettable year with the outbreak of the unprecedented COVID pandemic and its tragic impact on humanity. But at the same time, will also be remembered as a unique transformative year, which in many ways has changed the way we live and work and marks the acceptance of what we may call the digital way of life becoming the new normal. For us in India, our Prime Minister's vision of Digital India, which was announced in from the ramparts of the Red Fort in 2014, and to achieve that, 75 years of independence, 22-23, has in fact in many ways become real even earlier. In this changed landscape, the sheer importance and essentiality of quality digital connectivity anywhere and everywhere based on the bedrock of digital infrastructure cannot be overemphasized. For our customers, this happening, as the TV also explained so lucidly, of the mobile internet-linked data explosion, coupled with the COVID impact, has shifted the spotlight to work from home or work from remote locations, virtual offices, and in turn has led to a key trend change of customers' legitimate expectation for shifting towards high quality in-building digital connectivity measured in terms of high bandwidth, high speed, and low latency in terms of availability and reliability in each and every space he covers, rather than what we have been seeing of running to the window. Meeting these customer expectations obviously needs a very rapid rollout of digital infrastructure, which broadly comprises of fiber, towers, radio networking, including small cells, transmission links in the in-building environment, as also Wi-Fi and mobile-related connectivity. Obviously, the in-building environment, when we say, refers to, say, multi-story residential complexes, commercial complexes, offices, enterprises, shopping malls, airports, hospitals, metro stations, and several more. This, of course, in many ways represents a huge business opportunity also for telecom players, both infrastructure providers and service providers, to fulfill customer expectations. At the same time, for telecom providers, while it is a great opportunity, it also is a challenge of collaborative working amongst the multiple stakeholders who constitute the in-building ecosystem, including building owners, developers, RWAs, architects, consulting organizations, as also from the perspective of policymakers such as the central government, the state government, and the municipal bodies for obtaining permissions, approvals, and facilitations, particularly in the federal environment in which we operate in. Therefore, for policymakers, it also involves a great deal of leadership, which we are looking forward to under the Ministry of Home and Urban Affairs, MoHUA. They have agreed to partner with us, and we thank them for that. And we believe that this will call for a lot of inter-ministerial working with the DOT, TRAI from the perspective of quality and regulation, as also with the standard setting body such as the Bureau of Indian Standards. Fortunately for us, the National Digital Communications Policy, which was enunciated in 2018, in its policy guidelines under the Connect India mission, has clearly stated that creating a robust digital communications infrastructure is a bedrock, and has laid various goals and objectives with respect to improving the digital infrastructure in India. One amongst them clearly states requirement of telecom installations and associated cabling and in-building solutions as mandatory in all commercial, residential and office spaces by amending the National Building Code of India through the Bureau of Indian Standards. It is therefore a very important recommendation which we need to see how it will be brought into play. It is therefore recommended that MoHUA, in short, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, as our nodal ministry, comes out with what one would call a policy advisory for all the states and municipal bodies, emphasizing the critical and essential need of having a robust digital infrastructure in all the commercial, residential, and government buildings prior permission for usage. I think this will be a very important initiative and a very progressive step towards what we call neutral host digital infrastructure providers being chosen to set up common shareable digital infrastructure. I think shareable is the key word which Mr. T.V. Ramachandran emphasized. For each building, to set up common shareable digital infrastructure for each building for providing fair, transparent, and non-discriminatory access to all authorized service providers, and to enable the service providers in turn to provide the multiple range of services to the end customers, many of which are happening and many of which are further envisaged. within the buildings in a technology neutral environment. This will ensure what I would call a win-win approach for all concerned stakeholders, including the infrastructure providers and the service providers. I believe this is a very important initiative which we hope will bring us to a next step as far as this particular workshop and its discussions will emanate from. The necessary standards for good quality digital infrastructure can and should be laid down by the TRAI and enshrined in the National Building Code under the aegis of the Bureau of Indian Standards. This will be another very, very important step to look at the long-term future, where the buildings will be there for 50 years, but the digital infrastructure will be evolving on a more or less continuous basis. And it is from that point of view that we have to view how this will be enshrined in the National Building Code. The neutral infra provider would be enjoined to facilitate the establishment and deployment of robust, scalable, and extensive infrastructure after taking necessary permissions and approvals from the state, municipal, and local bodies. As you will no doubt appreciate, a good quality infrastructure strengthens the capacity of the state or the city government to provide citizen-centric services more effectively and, in fact, reduce public expenditure incurred in offering such services. Take the example of health facilities, transport facilities, safe travel, energy-efficient solutions, digital payments, and so on. To ensure a well-connected, digitized building, there has to be a collaborative engagement. And this is the other important point I'm bringing out, that for this collaborative engagement among stakeholders, this workshop is a step in that direction of developing a holistic and integrated approach. It is our recommendation that to ensure the implementation of MoHUA's advisory guidelines as a policy, these can then be ensured as to how the implementation will happen by constituting a multi-stakeholders action group, which will consist of permanent representatives from the MoHUA ministry, from the state nodal officers, and representatives from DOT, TRAI, BIS, the RWAs, builder groups, and other stakeholders to handle issues, and dialogue with the state nodal officers to ensure effective implementation of the policy guidelines. This is a very important workshop, keeping in mind this fundamental objective of multiple stakeholders working together and working in a harmonious environment. And we do look forward that in the course of the day today, we will have an engaged discussions around these issues and recommendations, which will then take us to our next steps in our building digital connect journey. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention also.
Thank you very much, Umang. And let me also now take the opportunity to welcome Shri Durga Shankar Mishra ji, who has joined us just now from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Sir, we took the distinction of starting just before you came in, and what you heard were the closing comments from Shri Umang Das, who is the chairman of several different committees and a veteran in the digital communications industry. We will now go on to our next speaker, Mr. Sanjeev Bedekar, who is BIF FTTX Committee Chairman and CEO of RAN Next Technologies. He is an ITS officer and a telecom professional for over 30 years and has worked in leadership positions across the government and corporate sectors. Having started his career with DOT, he has wide experience in establishing both 2G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, and FTTH and OSC networks for telcos like Airtel, Tata, Reliance, and Sterlite. Sanjeev, the floor is yours.
Good morning and welcome to respected Chief Guest Shri Durga Shankar Mishra ji, Secretary Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, esteemed guests, speakers, and attendees from TRAI, DOT, BIS, and other important government departments, along with members of various real estate associations, builders, architects, and my dear industry colleagues. My regards to co-panelist Mr. T.V. Ramchandran, President Broadband India Forum, Sri Umang Das, and DGBIF, Mr. Rajat Mukherjee. This interactive workshop, sir, is a great opportunity to hear from the top officials about their vision and for the various stakeholders of the industry to put forward different aspects of this important subject of providing a world-class telecom and IT services to our citizens, and more importantly, at the places where they live, travel, and work. For an inclusive growth of the country, vision of Digital India is a big catalyst. Digital transformation involves both telecom and IT infrastructure and services and its ubiquitous availability to every strata of society. National Digital Telecom Policy seeks to unlock the transformative power of digital communication networks in order to support India's transition to a digitally empowered economy and society. And that's the vision of the current government, and I think there is a lot of efforts that are being put on it. This visionary policy, sir, envisages 3 missions of connect, propel, and secure India, and are equally critical for every segment of our citizens, whether it is rural, urban colonies, or structured habitations or enterprises. Through public-private initiatives, BharatNet is working on a huge project to connect all Gram Panchayats across the country. But today, sir, we would try to highlight the other part, which is into the structured habitation of residential, commercial, and office complexes. Last year, sir, we celebrated Silver Jubilee of the first mobile call made in India, as well as the public internet services by BSNL. In last 25 years, we have seen more of a revolution than just evolution in the field of telecom. Today, India can boast to have the highest per customer consumption at 13.5 GB per month. These are some of the statistics which are very recent, published by Nokia. So while India has grown tremendously in terms of mobile broadband, the fixed broadband continues to hardly sit at less than 5% of the broad market. Now, is it because it requires building a network right up to the customer place? Now, let us see the last 1 year, the COVID pandemic, with a huge dent to the mankind, but it's forced us to think very differently. And work from home, which was a necessity, brought up many more possibilities. Many areas like education, medical consultation have taken a huge lead on usage of IT for remote management. Video at more than 65% has been the predominant traffic, contributed big time by entertainment. But now the business usage is growing at stupendous speed with digitization process by government itself as well as the business sector. Critical need is to cover the complete connectivity solution for mobile, fixed and IoT services inside various building complexes. One requires a reliable high-speed broadband with best-in-class quality of service. Sir, in today's world, a poor reliability, congestion or slow response is disaster for many applications and many of the youngsters who are working from remote places. Now let us look at what are the telecom solutions available to take inside the buildings. Till now, mobile services have moved fundamentally from outdoor to indoor coverage through external towers, and there is a huge need to strengthen the same inside the habitation. While telecom operators are continuously bringing in new technologies and spending a lot on augmenting networks, there are limitations in terms of site availability and permissions for the building mobile network that can provide ubiquitous coverage and high speed across. 2G, 3G, 4G was fundamentally to increase the speed and capacity. But 5G will bring an additional important critical aspect of response time, which will be important for machine-to-machine communication. And with cloud getting more and more traction, robust connectivity from everywhere is extremely critical for the business. To improve the quality of service, current 4G as well as the upcoming 5G, it requires the radio terminals to go much closer to the customer. This can only be delivered using robust OFC network. Complete range of mobile services from radio to small cell to machine services and IT services can be built over it. The concept of outdoor small cell, which is picking up big time now and likely to be the most important deployments in the next year by all leading operators, it radiates very low power and will also be a part of the HETNet or heterogeneous network solutions that are being built by the operators. These can be mounted on electricity poles or new poles in the gardens, in the common areas, and will complement the mobile towers on the terraces. These can provide very good coverage and high mobility data speeds. Various technology solutions today, sir, are available that can completely transform the quality of service that is so essential now. Such infrastructure, but definitely requires a very fundamental thing called optical fiber, which has been extremely well stressed even in the NDCP, that is the communication policy by Government of India. Same infrastructure can provide high-speed internet bandwidth and Wi-Fi. And now with PM Wani coming in, that is again going to open a new vistas in terms of the public Wi-Fi. Now, let me go to another extremely important part, a bit beyond the telecom requirements. The digital transformation of lifestyle, it will not just mean quality entertainment through OTT services and video streaming, but it will include huge applications like remote building management system, video surveillance systems, well-controlled electric distribution system, and above all, IoT and M2M applications. All these can be delivered through a robust FTTX infrastructure of high reliable speeds. Now, unfortunately, till now, obviously the builders, they have been taking their own initiatives, and some of these activities are delivered today still using the copper cables or the Cat6 cables, which have higher costs, lower performance, and most importantly, does not provide a future-ready network that is so essential now. New concepts like edge computing are knocking the door and will make the digitization much robust, faster, and user-friendly and economical. A small infrastructure can be created right from today into strategically located buildings to address this need for future. Now, sir, what are the suggested possibilities? India has pioneered into the shared infrastructure and created large tower companies. Now it's time to build companies with neutral infrastructure for serving in building, in colonies, in metro rails, in office and commercial complexes with future-ready optical fiber network to run user-friendly applications. The role of RWS become very, very crucial at these times. Typical problems that building complexes face is multiple agencies, multiple teams from different service providers approaching them at very different point of time and wanting to work in the building complexes. At times, it is a huge nuisance to the residents and leads to congested shafts and regular hassles. This is a major problem, sir. If you go to any of even the high-end buildings, there is huge congestion into their shafts and nothing new can be laid over there. Today, the technology as well as the regulation allows building of a neutral telecom infrastructure. This can be very well built and managed by reputed companies that hold relevant licenses given by Government of India, like IP1, Infrastructure Provider 1. So this is a clear win-win situation for all the four stakeholders, most importantly the consumer, the builders or the public authorities, the service providers, and obviously the infrastructure providers. The suggestion is to have telecom infrastructure as a mandatory infrastructure at each building complex, similar to other utilities like electric, water, and gas. Obviously, telecom has one more angle other than these three utilities, is the availability of multiple operators. And it is very important that the consumer gets the right choice that he only should be able to make. To standardize and develop shared infrastructure, it is very, very much required that if this can be made, telecom can be made as a part of NBC and create policies for standardization and certification for the quality of service. Today with BIS team and DOT team here, I'm sure they can throw a lot of light on this. Neutral network providers can play an important role in building the synergies for multiple operators to give options to the consumers for choosing services out of various operators. This will bring major cost efficiencies by avoiding multiplicity of network deployments for builders and a perpetual service to the customer and RWS. And the most importantly, this will provide a robust network for building the digital transformation initiatives for building management system, security, HVAC, and a whole lot of gamut of services. So success of this model will big time depend on the adaptability of this unique, but by the real estate corporate houses and architects, consultant, PMCs, and well supported by government organizations. So these are the three stakeholders that can connect, collaborate, and converge for building a sustainable digital economy in the country. The whole idea is to bring the users and the providers together and build a collaborative ecosystem under the aegis of authorities like MoHUA that can facilitate and enable a robust telco infrastructure based on optical fiber networks. Today, we have an august gathering of providers, users, and part of facilitators fraternity. I believe this huge platform under the aegis of MoHUA, BIS, TRI, and DOT, we should be able to bring together all stakeholders to build an ecosystem and robust policies to take the creation of this golden last mile to the next level and facilitate a best-in-class telecom infrastructure for the citizens of our great country. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev, for your very inspiring directions to the various suggestions which are going to be hopefully made. It is my honor and privilege now to request our chief guest for the inaugural session today, Shri Durga Shankar Mishra ji, to speak to us. Shri Mishra is a secretary in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, a 1984 IAS officer of the UP cadre. He has served in various key positions for both the central government and the UP government. An electrical engineer from IIT Kanpur and an MBA from the University of Western Sydney. He also holds postgraduate diplomas in public policy from the International Institute of Social Studies in The Hague and Human Resource Management. Sir, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Mukherjee Saab. Is my voice being heard? Is it okay?
Perfectly clear, sir. Thank you.
Very good morning to everybody. Mr. TV Ramchandran, the President of Broadband India Forum. Mr. Umang Das, the Chairman of the Foreign Investors India Forum. Mr. Sanjeev, who just spoke before me, the Chairman of, he's the CEO of RNX Technologies Private Limited, and all those who have joined on this very important conversation on Connect India in building solutions. In fact, I was keenly hearing to Mr. Sanjeev, and immediately I Googled and found out that it was on 31st July 1995 that Mr. Sukhram, the then Minister of Communication, spoke to Mr. The Chief Minister of West Bengal. So this is not, I mean, the whole story of growing telecommunication in the country is only 2.5 decades old. And what it has done in 25 years is I mean, it must be one of the most stupendous growth story in the country in any field. I mean, in 25 years, I Googled again and I saw that the total number of smartphones are almost crossing 75 crores. In just 25 years, I mean, from 0 to 75 crores is a huge leap, and you do not know where it is going to. In fact, the impact of this, I mean, this period of COVID-19 in the last 1 year, the country has established in the whole the community of the world community as a very, very important and a powerful nation which can address issues because of we have a very, very strong broadband and a very strong IT network across the country. When things had come to standstill, when the COVID-19 led to complete close down, people had to stick to their houses. The world moved, the country moved. It could move because we had a very strong connectivity across the country. We realized that people could work from home, even in the government, which was unthinkable. Yes, my wife worked for the UN, and she has various occasions she works from home. I mean, I used to see her working from home, connecting to the whole of the world. But in thinking of this in the government was not possible prior to this COVID-19, and we allowed all of us, the life did not come to standstill, even though there was a full lockdown. We were connected to the world, we were connecting to the various countries, doing conversation across the globe, doing conversation across the country, connecting people and making sure that the people's life go on. They do even though there were certain difficulties, despite those difficulties, they could continue doing things, especially essential services like health or sanitation, logistics. I mean, all these things were possible because of this kind of connectivity. Today, when I take my mobile, it's like I'm taking the world along with me. I mean, wherever I can connect to the rest of the e-commerce. The way, I mean, well, I'm still used to going to the market, buying things, seeing things, feeling things. But my son and the daughter, I mean, the whole young generation, they do everything on the mobile. Whatever they have to purchase from wherever they have to purchase, they just work on the mobile. They are connected all 24 hours. The whole business is being done across. I mean, this is the youths. They don't have to travel all the feel the congestion, feel the pollution, have the, I mean, different kinds of adversity. They have to feel all those things. They just sit at place and they just get connected to the world. This is because of the kind of mobile, kind of telecom services has gone so much high in the last just 2.5 decades. This not a long time. And in the process, we have learned a lot from the, I mean, now from 4G, we are trying to move towards the 5G. We'll go towards the 7G. I mean, the things are becoming better and better. Internet of Things. I mean, when the people are connected with each other, people, I mean, we do have the relationships. So are the things getting related to each other. They can talk to each other. They can communicate as if we can communicate, and they can take decisions. I mean, things like machine learning and artificial intelligence, the way it is happening, the way our whole communication technology, I mean, today, sitting as a secretary to Government of India, I am connected to the whole of the country, and I can see, I mean, you can think of, we are constructing 1 crore houses. 1 crore houses is a huge number across the country, and it is, I mean, the whole geography of the country, but I can see each and every house. We constructed more than, I mean, 62, 63 lakhs of toilets, but every toilet I can track and see that the toilet is here, it is being constructed, nobody can fool me around. When we are doing so many of infrastructure work on the, whether it is the water or sewer or drainage or anything, is that everything is geotagged. Now it is possible that under the ease of doing business, we can see that sitting anywhere, anytime, you can just pass your, I mean, you can submit your application, the application will be processed, and application will be finally, I mean, it will be approved and delivered to you, and there is no human contact. This is possible because of the strength of IT. So, I mean, absolutely, I mean, the way digital has moved, and especially last 6 years through the very robust policies of the Government of India, the way it has moved, it has a tremendous job. We have moved a lot in the previous 18, 19 years, but I think it is now taken this exponential path on which it has moved. The amount of the fiber optics network which has laid down in the last 6 or 7 years through the very, very focused approach of the government, this is tremendous. Now we need to build on it. I mean, we have all realized the strength of this. We have realized the strength of it. Nobody can say, I mean, think of anything. I mean, recently you must have seen the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, he flagged off the first driverless train in Delhi. I mean, think of it. I mean, there's something which is not possible. It's the first driverless train in Delhi, where, I mean, there's the whole line, I mean, the line 8, and now the line 7 will come in the next few months. By June, we'll have line 7 also. And we'll have the 9% of the total network of the driverless metro train running in our country. We are very proud of it. And this is possible because of the power of the telecom. Sitting at the operation control center at the OCC, long distance from there, they can just giving a command from there. The train, when the driver stops at the final station, we can run the whole train without any driver. But normally people have fear that the driver is not there. But at least when in the night at 11:30 or so, when the train comes to the final station, he will give a command and will go and finally sit at the place where it has to sit for the night. And when it starts in the morning, the driver doesn't need to bother to go early morning, 3:30, 4 o'clock, do all the tests, checks, and if he mistakes he commits some mistakes, there may be chances of accident. They do happen. They do happen. So here is a machine from where, sitting far away from there, he can just give a command. All the tests done, all everything confirmed. Train comes and sits at the station. The driver can take it. I mean, it can go without driver also. Maybe in after some time we'll start running driverless. The technology is very much there. It is possible because of the IT. Today we are, I mean, we are doing this recently. This in the construction technology lighthouse projects where we are constructing houses which are possible. I mean, something like 14-story building, more than 1,000 houses are being constructed in 6 to 7 months. Definitely, there is a lot of changes in the construction technology, the material being used, the binding material being used, the way things are happening. They are all there. But the IT is also playing a very, very important role there. The communication is playing very important role. It's like no walks of life where IT and telecom is not playing an important role. So we have realized that strength. Our country is moving ahead. The country, the new India, which the Honorable Prime Minister keep on mentioning, if we have to cater to everybody's need, if we have to empower everybody, if we have to, I mean, have an inclusive development of the country, there is nothing else which can do it other than the telecom. The telecom will provide that robust infrastructure through which all services, everything, all your, I mean, grievances, they can all be addressed in a multiplied way, not in a singular way, not it is one-to-one, but thousands of people can be connected right away. Their issues can be addressed. They could be sorted out. So there's no denying there is a huge gain, and we must build on it. And there, the role of this Connect India in building solutions, that becomes very, very important. Now I start from here. I mean, the first thing is we must learn, because this is also a learning. When things are synergized, when things are done at one go, because our resources are limited. We don't have unlimited resources. The best would be everybody gets a wire in his home. Everybody gets a different fiber running to every home. That will be huge cost. Every company had its own wired network, its own fiber optics network. That will, it may not be as much costly, but will be definitely much costlier. If you have a single network which can be used by anybody, they can be, they're rented out to anybody. Like nowadays, you have a tower, and the tower is used by many operators. Many internet service operators use the same tower, and then the economy and the scale, that definitely works, and it becomes much more affordable. If you do, every company is like, I don't name the different internet service providers. If the BSNL does it, Jio does it, Vodafone does it, or Airtel does it, everybody takes it to the same colony. The cost is not only the cost is going to be more, but even our roads are going to be stressed a lot. There will be many times the road will be cut, and that is going to affect the public. That's the learning out of smart cities. In the smart cities, what we have, we have already constructed more than 250 kilometers of the smart roads. Another 500 kilometers smart roads are under construction. And what they have done, they have a common duct on which, anything which you want to move, the road need not be cut. That can go in that duct. So it's the same thing. For the fiber optics, again, if that could be done. And I was just talking to the telecom secretary that why this is not happening. There is two ways. One is, already there's something there. The legacy is there. Can be built from there. At least in future we can do it from there. This is something, some kind of a consensus that we made, and the supported with the government policy, we can have a common kind of a network. Two, in all building environments, already there is provided in our National Building Code, the Part 8 of the Section 6, that clearly lays down the various standards for telecom services. I think it is not adequate. It needs to build further. And so is the case with our model building bylaws, which my ministry notified in the year 2016. We have this in the chapter 5 in section 5.5.2. This definitely mentions about what is needed in the new buildings, but that needs to be further added. And I had a conversation with my town and country planning office, the chief planner there, that let's build on it and prepare, because this is new India. We cannot do without it. Let it be mandated. that any building we are going to construct, every house, every room must have a, connectivity like you cannot do without electricity, like you cannot do without water. The water connectivity, electricity connectivity. So is the telecom connectivity. You should be able to do it from anywhere. You should be able to do it from anywhere. And once you lay it, then just like a plug and play. Who is the service provider doesn't matter. You have already provided for the basic services. And I've directed my TCPO. That this should become our norm. This is where we should start. That once you get a connection from outside, just connect it, and everywhere it is connectivity there. And the cost is going to be hardly, it doesn't add much of the cost when you do it once. Otherwise, you keep adding it, then it becomes very, very difficult. So we'll definitely we'll go ahead and do that, considering that from now on, and that's our learning from a smart city. In the smart city, there is so much of focus on the data. There's so much of the focus on connecting the data, collecting the data, using the big data analysis and utilizing the data for the sake of making the people's life better, bringing ease in their living. And the way it is happening, you are all, you can visit our integrated command and control center. Already 54 of them are operational. Another 30 of them are under construction. They will soon be, even just today, Honorable Prime Minister is going to lay foundation of integrated command and control center in Trivandrum. Next few days, another 10 centers in the state of Tamil Nadu. That is the smart city command and control center in different smart cities. So it's happening, and it is paying the results. It's already started showing the impact of this. But to bring it in the building environment, we have the TCPO. The TCPO is sitting right here. He is listening to me, and we had a detailed conversation. We would like to not only to start with giving an advisory and make it a part of the building bylaws. Once it is made as a part of the building bylaws, any kind of whether it is the redevelopment or the new construction, they will definitely be there. We would like to further, along with the Ministry of Telecom, we would like to try to give some kind of incentive, also some kind of a reform approach, so that this becomes the normal. Whether you are constructing a school, because the school also, it is a smart education is going to be the future. You are constructing a commercial building, it's a smart, everywhere. You display your shop in the shop. The same shop is also connected through to the IT network, and then it can be accessed from anywhere. I don't have to go there. I can access it from my home and just do the window shopping and order right away there. It's the way we do our business, things are definitely going to change, and there the role of this whole broadband connectivity is going to be very, very important. So I'd like to thank you. This organizing a conversation of this kind with experts like this. I just heard one, and partly I heard the other one when I joined here. So with your conversation, if there are some specific suggestions, specific ideas are coming, kindly do document them, share it with our TCPO, share with our ministry, and we'll work on it, because this is for the future of India. This is to make our country ready for the country ready for 21st century. When the country is moving in the direction of every field, you take any field, we are going from higher and higher level of the technology. We are inviting that, and here in the field of IT, which provides a kind of a base for everybody, we should create an environment where it should help all others to move further. So let me wish you all a very good dialogue during this workshop today, and please do share that with us, which can help us for building it on that. So my best wishes for today's conversation. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very, very much, sir, for your excellent comments. And we are extremely enthused by the points that you have made. Yes, after this, there is going to be an interactive session with experts from the DOT, the TRAI, the BIF, and from MoHUA as well, from the Town and Country Planning section. And the deliberations and the outcomes of this will be recorded and made available to you and in your office as well. we are extremely happy and confident that this will be taken forward by you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for joining us. May I now request my Senior Director and colleague Arun Mukherjee to please propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Rajat. It is indeed my privilege to give the vote of thanks in this very august event. It's an extremely important event on a topic like in-building solutions. It's going to address issues which will come up with new technologies, also with some existing technologies. I must specially thank the participation of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and especially respected Secretary Shri Durga Shankar Mishra for his participation and very progressive information that he has given us, that the ministry is really looking to come out with new developments which will facilitate in-building solutions. As you have correctly said, sir, learning from the experiences of smart cities, we need to be smart and upgrade for all residential office buildings, etc. I would like to thank Mr. Sanjeev Bidekar for his very informative presentation and giving us information on the technologies that are to come and what would be required to be done for introducing in-building solutions. I thank Mr. Umang Das also for providing the background for the discussion today. And also, I would like to thank Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, who has been instrumental in bringing this event together, as always, and giving such important information to us. He has been there from the beginning of the industry and always looks at new developments continuously, even today. Heartiest thanks, sir. I would also like to thank all the participants, especially those who come from the RWAs. We thank you for the support that you are giving for this event, and hope you are able to take away some good information. If we already have your contact points, as we are going to be sharing, as Mr. Rajat Mukherjee has said, we would be sharing with the ministry. We would also like to share these points with you. And please do talk to your associations and let them know what is going to happen also. With that, I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for joining us today. This brings us to the close of the first and opening session, which is the inaugural session of this Connect India in-building solution digital dialogue. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Arun Mukherjee, Senior Director of Operations at BIF, to take you forward in the second part of Connect India in-building solutions of the digital dialogue, which is the interactive session. Over to you, Arun.
Thank you, Rajat. So very good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the next session of today's digital dialogues. As Rajat has correctly said, this is going to be an interactive workshop held in association with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and will focus on in-building solutions, which is a vital requirement under the Connect India mission of the NDCP also. Before we start again, I would just like to remind everybody, please do keep your mics on mute during the session. There will be an interactive session which is going to be moderated by Mr. Devashish Bhattacharya, Deputy Director General, and I would be handing over to him during that session. There will be a question and answer session also after that, so please do raise your questions either in the question and answer box or in the chat session for those who are on their mobiles. We will try to put both of them, all the questions before Devashish Bhattacharya, and either in case we can call you up, we would call you up. Otherwise, we would definitely try and address the question which is there in the question and answer session. We are honored to have Shri S.K. Gupta, Secretary, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, as a chief guest. Thank you for gracing the event, sir. This event is going to be richer for your valued guidance and inputs. Thank you so much. Very warm welcome to our eminent speakers, Sri R. Srinivas, Advisor, Town and Country Planner of MoHUA. Shri Sushil Kumar Narnoli, DDG Civil from DOT. Shri Asit Kadian, Advisor, QoS from TRAI. Mr. Kartik Raja, Founder of Mozart. Mr. Dheeraj Sharma, Co-Chair, BIF's FTTX Committee, and Senior Vice President, Planning and Technology of RGO. Also, we welcome Mr. Sanjeev Bidekar, Chairman of BIF's FTTX Committee and CEO, RANNext Technologies. Mr. Sanjeev Bidekar is an ITS officer and a telecom professional for over 30 years. He has worked in leadership positions across government and corporate sectors. Having started his career with DOT, he has wide experience in establishing 2G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, FTTH, and OFC networks for top telcos like Airtel, Tata, Reliance, and Sterlite. I now request Mr. Sanjeev Bidekar to give the welcome address and theme introduction, please. Mr. Bidekar.
So once again, good morning to all. I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, Chief.
Yeah, so would like to start by welcoming distinguished speakers. It's so nice of us that Shri S.K. Gupta, Secretary TRAI, Shri Sushil Kumar Narnoli, DDG Civil, Shri Asit Kadian, Advisor QoS TRAI, Mr. R. Srinivas, Advisor Town and Country Community Planning, MoHUA, Shri Sanjay Pant, Head of Civil Engineering at BIS, and Mr. Kartik Raja, Founder Mozart, are present with us today for giving their very, very valuable inputs. And obviously, it will be included and contributed by Dheeraj, who is co-chair for the FTTX committee and with a great experience coming from Jio, and obviously Arun Mukherjee, Senior Director BIF. We just had a very good discussion with some fantastic comments, very, very encouraging comments from Honorable Secretary MoHUA. And I'm sure there's a huge opportunity and a very right path that we as a country are moving on to. So I'll just keep this brief. I understand that the objectives of the workshop are by now pretty clear. The importance of connectivity in today's scenario is paramount, irrespective of whether it is into commercial, residence, or office complexes. And telecom is something that is no more a luxury, but actually is a need, is a must. In the last so many years, I think there has been a complete revolution that I always talk about in telecom, and things have changed drastically. But now there is a need to make a robust indoor network to ensure smooth delivery of digital telecommunication infrastructure. Voice, which was always 80% from outside, data on the other hand is 80% from inside, and very obviously so. There are multiple stakeholders in the last mile looking forward for best-in-class services at optimal cost. So here it is a very typical case where both cost and quality are both of them are required simultaneously. Delivered by collaboration of all the stakeholders. Session today attended by very senior officials from these leading organizations will definitely pave the way for a collective approach. Interactive session, I'm sure, would include discussions around the critical needs of having digital infrastructure in all commercial, residential, and government buildings. And now I believe that the whole communication was basically from the point of view of the end consumer, and obviously it grew very well. But I think now there is a point where with government as well as the private sector completely digitally transforming themselves, there is a huge opportunity and a need, to my mind, to improve the coverage right inside the buildings, right inside where people live and travel. So one of the suggestions, and very, very rightly pointed by Honorable Secretary also on in some manner, there is a need for some sort of common infrastructure. So one of the suggestions, I'm very sure today's committee may come out with some more options and opportunities. It is very important to have a neutral host digital infrastructure providers be chosen into every building actually to ensure fair, transparent, and non-discriminatory access to all service providers. This is extremely important part so that the customer gets a choice and every operator gets an opportunity. Both are important at the same time. the neutral infrastructure host, the neutral host infrastructure provider thus chosen should facilitate the development of necessary in-building infrastructure without any duplication, ensuring enablement of good quality network through deployment of robust, scalable, and extensive infrastructure after taking due permissions from the local authorities. Now, here it is very important to say that even till date, the network, whether it is technology-wise or it is deployment-wise, the networks were for 10 years approximately. 2G changed, 3G changed, 4G changed, 4G will hopefully change soon. And that's where there has been movement. But the basic infrastructure, the roads, the highway, that is the fiber highway, I think is going to play a very important role, which will make all our country as a whole a future-ready place for technology to come in. And I'm sure our youth, which is coming out with very, very ingenious ideas, will be able to make use of that in terms of very, very new and innovative solutions that can really make the life of the last man in the whole channel easy. We hope that BIF through this workshop is helping to create a common platform for all the relevant stakeholders, local bodies, departments, residential associations, builders. It is very good to see a very good representation from RWAs and builders also in the today's conclave. Now, the IP1, being a license holder, will be obliged to deliver required quality of service as defined by standardization and certification process. So it is not only important that we have these people coming together, but it will be very important that there is a standardization and certification process that falls through. Like Mr. TV was mentioning in the morning, that for electric cables, for example, there is a clear-cut standardization process. And if the building doesn't satisfy those criteria, then they don't get a completion certificate at all. I think there is a requirement first to build it and then to deliver it by the IP1s. So with the presence of very senior officers from various departments, I'm sure all participants will be enlightened with very different perceptions and possibilities. Thank you very much, and would request people to really ask questions. There is a very well Q&A session planned in the end, and definitely will be able to bring in new views as well as satisfy some of the queries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji, for laying the foundation for the discussions in this interactive workshop. Our next speaker will be Mr. Dheeraj Sharma. He is the co-chair of BIF's FTTX committee and senior vice president planning and technology of RGO. He has a career spanning 25 years dedicated to fixed line networks and has been steering strategy, planning, innovation and automation areas for a pan-India rollout of fiber for homes, enterprises and 5G readiness at Jio. He has also architected automation and digital services for fixed line network, infra and customers under Jio platforms. With that, Dheeraj ji, please, I request you to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun, for this kind introduction. Am I visible on the camera now?
Very much, yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Arun. So I think a lot has been conveyed in the first session. Okay, what is the requirement of the in-building solution and how it is relevant for this telecom and the digital communication industry. So I would try to take this discussion towards the more on the engineering side, okay, what we need to take in the building. So as we know, okay, there's a lot has been done for the wireless side and clearly articulated in terms of the sharing of the infrastructure, sharing of the towers, how it has helped the industry. And we have seen the revolution in the mobile space. And today in India, what we see is when we see the in-building or the fixed networks, we have not seen the same level of revolution. And what are the underlying reasons are there? And some of the underlying reasons, what we are trying to now address this in this session is how do we now bring the same level of revolution for the in-building solution also, so that the people who are staying, the offices who are there in the buildings, how they can be better connected. And then they can also, we can take this revolution to the next level in terms of the fixed line penetration and also taking advantage of the fixed wireless convergence now, which is going to happen. So maybe 15 years back, we used to talk about maybe a copper and we would talk about the fiber, but now with the wireless wireline, the new things which are coming up is a wireless wireline convergence It means every building and every home, every office. It is nothing. It's not only the wireline. We need to having a wireline plus wireless coverage has to be there in each and every building. And when we say that, so it's not only the building which is getting benefited, all the tenants are getting benefited. And how the buildings are getting benefited? Because the building IoT, the surveillance, and whatever we do in the building, and there is a huge potential of having the building getting monitored, managed in the remote manner. Like Mr. Mishra has very clearly said, now we are seeing the driverless trains. We are also going to see the without any human, the security and surveillance of the building getting addressed, the building maintenance getting addressed, because now the building IoTs are becoming at a very, very fractional of the cost. The cost things are improving, and all the platforms are moving to the cloud. So there is a huge potential available, so that when we make the building smart, we make the building intelligent, and we make the building digital, and that it's not only reducing the cost of the operation of the buildings, but are also the giving the benefit to the tenants and the buildings owners or the building managers in managing the buildings. So the in-building solution is the one who is going to transform the way we are today operating the offices, the complexes, the way the residents are right now working, because we see that the work from home is coming up, and now this infrastructure also require a lot of reliability. And we say that if we have to ensure the availability and reliability of this network, it means the infrastructure in the building has to be very, very the high quality, and also it has to be cost viable. And how it is possible? The moment we bring to a building, introduce a building code of conduct, the infrastructure is shared. Instead of every operator putting the infrastructure in the building and having a the quality is not able to maintain, because everybody is creating an infrastructure and people are not able to maintain the quality because it is not architecturally covered in the buildings. So by introducing a digital infrastructure in the building code of conduct, so like the electricity, we see there is a clear cut, the utility rooms are there, the meter rooms are there, and there is a clear demarcation between the service provider where the meter up to the meter he brings the electricity, and then rest of the things are being managed by the individual tenants to ensure that the cabling goes to their individual locations. Similarly, if you are able to have the right communication infrastructure in the buildings, and we know there is a clear demarcation is there, the multiple provider can come to a particular location, and then it is maintained. Rest of the things are being managed by the tenant, and then everything is defined, standardized, and it is unified. And that is how I think we can address the area which has been so far is not covered very well, and there is a huge scope of improvement. And if you try to say and try to see the reference of the many of the developing countries, they are with the structured building code of conduct, code, they are able to maintain this uniformity. So all the service providers come to an area, and then they know key beyond this, the individual tenant or the building owner take the responsibility of extending the infrastructure. So it is able to help both the things. It is able to help the respective residents or the offices, and it is also able to help the service providers also. And the second point I want to bring out, because as a service provider, when we go to the buildings, one of the issues coming up many places, the infrastructure is available, but we come across the building owners or the building management, the teams are asking for a huge money, and the money is not which is maybe a small money. Sometimes the money is something which cannot be paid, and it is absolutely non-viable. So if we have to create an infrastructure which is meant for the residents, and for the first stage itself, the cost which is high, the price which is asked as a rental or as the recurring money, and makes the whole thing unviable. And that's one of the reason if you see the lot of the in-building solution has not taken off in the market. The small cell deployment started maybe 2-3 years back in a big way, but seeing the requirement of the building and also having a lot of issues coming in the building because of the space, power, infrastructure creation, and then on top of that, the huge money being asked by the building owners, I think it has not taken off. And today we see like there's outdoor coverage is largely improved. We are able to see even coverage going to the villages, but we are not. The villages are having a better coverage in many cases, but the urban homes are not having that kind of indoor coverage. Now, where the density of the tower is maybe 10 times in the urban areas compared to the rural area, and still we see the coverage is more and pathetic, even the worse than the rural. The only reason is that because the concrete structure which are there, they require a lot of in-building solution, and in-building solution require the structured in-building infrastructure, and that in-building infrastructure requires the participation of the building. One is with the structured infrastructure if it's possible, and if not there in the old the brownfield buildings, then at least they have to facilitate and ensure it is a reasonable and it ensure it is viable also for the providers also, so that if somebody is asking for unreasonable money, I think there has to be some forum available. So there some kind of even this kind of rentals, like in case of the tower, there are some norms which are set over a period of time. If there some norms come up, then I think that also will make ensure if there is a better penetration of the brownfield building. And I'm sure now with the assurance of the Ministry of Home and Urban Affairs, like the building code is if introduced and it is imposed, I think that will be able to take care of our future building which are coming up, so that we are having a structured infrastructure available, and then we can pass on that benefits to the residents, and able to ensure that we are having a network which is not only the wireless wireline network is available in each and every building, and which is able to ensure a gigabit speed to each and every office and every residence, and able to ensure each and every inch of the building is having a wireless coverage, be it is a 5G coverage, 4G coverage, or Wi-Fi coverage, doesn't make a difference, because slowly the 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi, we are seeing the convergence, and now all the devices which are coming up, they are by default. We buy 4G smartphone or a 5G smartphone, they are available with the Wi-Fi also. So with that, I think we should be able to bring a next level of revolution inside buildings also, and more critical for the larger cities and the towns where we are having the large MDUs are there. And as we see, like the building code is there, like if you see that there is a lift, there is a building which is more than G+4, the lift is required. Similarly, there has to be based on the type of the building, a code where we know which type of building justifies a communication room, which kind of building require a communication outlet, but at least it has to be in such a way so that we are able to ensure that each and every house we are able to connect, and multiple providers are able to reach to those buildings, and there is a minimum cost, and there is a large level of uniformity which is available inside the building. And once the uniformity is there, then I think the cost of the material, cost of the skill set, and the cost of maintaining those infrastructure is also critical. So uniformity will bring the scale, and the scale will bring will reduce down the cost, and that cost is going to be passed on to the end consumer and customer. So I think with that, I close this at least this discussion, and then
thank you. Thank you, Dheeraj. That was, I must say, a very informative presentation from your side on the and you're sharing your experiences as from point of view of the service provider. Very well taken. I now introduce Mr. Karthik Raja, next speaker. He's the founder of Mozak. He's a serial entrepreneur in telecom and analytics with global markets exposure. He's the founder of two very successful startups, Red Pill Telecom and Fimetrics in the analytics space. He's been involved with the corporate strategy and M&A for Motorola and AD Little. He's currently the founder director of India's premier wireless network analytics and audit firm Fimetrics, which operates in 15 countries. He's an MBA from Chicago Booth, University of Texas. With that, I hand over to Karthik and request him to please give the industry address. Karthik.
Thanks, Arun. Arun, I'm assuming you can see the screen that I'm on?
Yes,
about
yes.
in building, or
It's coming up. It's just coming up. Yep, it's
okay.
up. Yes.
All right, great. Perfect. So thanks, Arun. And I think Dheeraj made a very interesting point at the end about the need for a code. And I'll just take off from there and talk about some of these global practices and stuff where what other countries are doing with regards to what their view of a building is and what their view of a code is and so on. One of the very interesting things which Mr. Gupta from TRII has always mentioned when it comes to in-building in different fora is that he's always talked about the fact that connectivity to buildings is just a matter of 10 years, 20 years. Things change in 10 and 20 years. The life of a building is much longer. And how do you look at things from that perspective when you come up with suggestions about code or infrastructure like that, right? So that's always been a very interesting conversation. And what we wanted to do was, I was just going to share with you at the initial stages some things about the thoughts that people from some of these other countries have been having. Yeah. So this is, I just wanted to give a holistic view on what goes into a smart building. We talk about connectivity for buildings, but if we take a step back and look at smart cities are nothing but a collection of smart buildings. Yeah. And so we have to take a wider and a larger definition of what goes into it's not just about connectivity, but it's about a smart building when we talk about these kind of things. And there are 7 layers from it. And this is a forum from the US of which we are a part of, and this is some of the things we've been doing with them. So layer 1 would be a simple layer about typical building infrastructure, which we are all used to, right? Cabling, lighting, security, management systems. And layer 2 typically happens to be the connectivity and the communications, the boxes, the cablings, and all of those points over there. But in a smart building, becomes the river, not just for communications and stuff which we would normally assume, right? The basic communications which we are talking layer 2, which is about voice and data. But it's also the layer on which power and energy is built on for a smart building, right? As we are all aware. It's also the layer in which the information management for a building, many of the buildings would look at having data centers there, edge data centers, and so on, security, resident data, all of that kind of stuff, right? Interoperable processes, systems, operations, and management of the building. How do you have the security when people move from one place to the other? How are they given access cards to go from one place to the other, right? So all of those kind of systems and operations, so it's seamless, the movement from one floor to another floor, movement from public areas to private areas inside buildings. There has to be a sense of seamlessness which comes in. And then obviously the whole autonomy, automation, which we've all heard of, which is, yeah, you got to, when there's nobody in the room, the lights turn off, and then the heating, the temperature, all kinds of autonomy and autonomy. And then, of course, on top of it is the layer of innovation and services. And the services could be by the building managers, the solutions, the services could be by neutral hosts themselves. It could be in light of TRI's and DOT's innovation now, it could be the PDOAs and the aggregators, but whoever it is, the owners can package this innovation and services. But essentially, the way we look at it, there are 7 layers which go into a smart building. And when you talk about building codes, when you talk about all of these areas, connectivity is the bedrock, right? It is at layer 2, exactly like the basic building services infrastructure in layer 1. But when we talk about it, we need to understand that when you're defining it, it can't be defined for a requirement as someone needs to do a voice call and watch a video there, right? It has to be defined with the idea that a smart building has layers above, and how connectivity is going to provide the necessary access points and the necessary facilitation to these kind of services. So that's the first point I wanted to talk about, which is how people in other countries view smart buildings when it comes to, I mean, this is a challenge. What we are facing is a challenge everybody everywhere is facing, right? So it's not unique to Indian cities. It's unique. The problem is all over the world. And this is one what we have seen is the most comprehensive program where they have a thought process and a clear guidelines on how they want to set up the code. So thought we'll want to share that with you. Given how India is looking at smart cities and stuff, this would be a very interesting starting point to look at things. Now, I think both Sanjeev and Dheeraj also talked about neutral hosting models, the commercials of neutral hosting models, and how India faces a unique problem where the people who are going to benefit the most from connectivity are the ones who want to charge rentals and are preventing the connectivity from coming up. So it's a very unique problem to our country compared to any other place. There are many ways one can look at this, right? And generally, the favored way is to look at regulation, of course, right? And then regulation is always an option. But in many countries, what we are also finding is that there are other ways to make it a win-win kind of a scenario, not just regulation, right? So I'm just giving you an idea of the kind of networks which sit inside a building today, right? I mean, if you take a smart building, like I mentioned, a standard building in a city in New York or Singapore or Paris, or even some of the smart buildings in India, some of the marquee buildings in India. This is just a view of what are the kinds of things from a connectivity perspective which sit inside a building. And in the US, you would have a CBRS kind of a spectrum, which is the local security spectrum, right? For the security guys, guards, and all of that. Cameras and videos, security cameras, DAS. There would be the in-building coverage. So the number of networks that we see inside a building, both a building network, a wireless network, a Wi-Fi network, a security network, and so on. There are just too many of them, right? And if we just look at where technology is moving in terms of running them commonly through smart antennas and stuff, and we've actually done some of this in Singapore Sports Sub and Marina Bay Sands, some of the marquee properties in Singapore, where the building owner takes the entire manages this entire thing as a neutral host. This is right. So I'll just share. I'll just jump a few screens and just using a platform-based thing, smart network, and all of that. What we find is that this is a Singapore dollar. This is just from Singapore perspective. There is a $1 per square foot saving over a five-year period, which translates to almost the 20 to 25% saving for the telcos, for the building owners, for the public Wi-Fi guys and stuff. This is purely just, I'm not talking about revenues and other stuff. Just the saving in this kind of a model comes to $1 and typically, just to give you an idea, deployment comes to $1.50 a square foot, right? And then maintenance of that. So 5-year period, it's a $2 kind of a spend, and we are finding that there is almost a 50% cost saving that comes in, and how the cost saving can translate to the different neutral hosts and stuff like that is a fairly simple thing which people are able to deploy. So one way to get around this whole problem of where is the tenancy, where is the who pays, and how it is there is a win-win situation for every party to get in, and that's what we find in a neutral host with the smart antenna kind of a model, and that allows quality is given to all the places, right? And the biggest benefit of it to a neutral host, what is the biggest challenge that a neutral host faces today? It is that it's very challenging to build I mean, nobody can compete with a telco to build something inside. You need the knowledge of a telco. Now, a telco will only use its knowledge to build enough for getting its own coverage. It's not going to build enough for getting a smart building. So the lack of knowledge is a big thing. And what I'd like to say is apply where the planning, all of those kind of things with the smart antenna sits in. So the skill set required to deliver when is changed. So when you basically have an integrated design across a lot of the kind of networks, right? So that you don't have the fragmented networks, and then it makes it much easier for a person with a lower skill set who is just an implementer or a maintainer to go and deliver for a neutral host. So the neutral host could potentially be a building owner or a cable operator who happens to be like a PDOA, but pretty much it's much easier for people to do it once technology exists for descaling. And these are kinds of things which, like I said, we've seen this in fancy buildings in Singapore and stuff like that. So a lot of countries are experimenting, doing POCs to figure this out and come up with the right model. And that's like I showed you the things in the US. There is something which is happening in Singapore as well. The other big benefit is, again, a lot of times we only talk about benefits in terms of connectivity and what is the value. But one of the very unique things about India, especially the cities of India, is that the cost of real estate in India is disproportional to the GDP of the country, right? So or to the average GDP per capita. So real estate is a huge cost, especially given the cost of capital and stuff like that. Real estate is a huge cost in this country. And in that sense, when anybody, be it a middle class person or an upper middle class, whatever, ends up buying an apartment, the cost of connectivity as a percentage to that overall cost is very low to that person, right? And I think in this kind of a thing, typically we tend to take an approach about regulatory, but think about how when it comes to buildings and energy and clean energy, how a concept like LEED has worked, right? And it's a brand about what clean energy is, what the kind of certifications are, and today that provides a reality edge, right? I mean, people are able to charge that extra 5% per square foot or 2% per square foot on a LEED rating, while in reality very few people really know what a LEED rating is. But if you see any building which talks about a platinum versus a gold LEED rating, there is a price differential even for a lower price kind of an apartment, right? And I think there is a similar value when we talk about it in smart cities for connectivity and a rating for connectivity to come out. And that's really where one should focus on. And this doesn't necessarily, I mean, I know there are a lot of regulators on this forum, but it doesn't necessarily have to be purely regulator driven. But we have seen it in many countries which is not very regulator driven, and I think like the slides I showed you earlier was from TIA, which is a industry body which has got a lot of operators. There is no FCC in it, though FCC is happy to be involved and support it. There is no FCC in it, but there are a lot of enterprises, commercial bodies which come in. And this is the Smart Building Working Group, which we are very much part of. And at a high level summary of their ratings, again, going into similar to the view they had about the smart buildings, which I shared with you earlier, they look at 5 different stars: telecom connectivity, media could be news, entertainment, social media, security, expansion of a network, which is for futuristic. So they've taken a 20-year view of buildings, and the resilience of buildings, right? So, and each of these is a star. And then they say, hey, so for each of these stars, where does the building qualify for, right? So the point is these kind of buildings and these kind of ratings become almost like a leads rating and becomes a marketable thing. So one of the key points Dheeraj mentioned about, hey, today building owners are asking me for rental. Tomorrow, I mean, if they want the rating, they will need the connectivity. Otherwise, the property manager or the building owner is not going to be able to sell his building, right? So I think there are ways around which don't always just depend on the regulatory. And these are some things which, again, other countries are doing. You should look at these. And you know, it's very simple to think about them. These are very app-driven ratings. Again, these are not very complicated. Like in the old days, you need a person to go with heavy equipment. You need an engineer to analyze. These are very smart things done, very app-based. Anybody can go collect these ratings, put it in a platform, get it. The platform will check whether it's tamper-proof. All the data is coming. So these are all things which exist today. Yeah, so all that is needed is more the intent, and maybe forum like BIF would be a great forum to push for such initiatives in order to do this. And I think some of the key things from a rating perspective are, you don't talk about it as a quality of service. You don't talk about what is the coverage, it's very quality of experience. Can I watch news? Can I work from home? Can I learn from home? It should be credible. The forum like BIF, if not a regulator, should look at it. Easily white labeled, so the building owners can have their own brand put on it. Should be very automated so that it's tamper proof. And I think the basic concept here is you nudge for good. You only talk about the positives and don't focus on the negatives. So it's not like one building is poor and another building is good. And the success of the LEEDS program is one building is platinum, another is gold. And I think that's really where you start getting success. It's not, hey, this building is not energy efficient. So there is no carrot and stick, it's carrot and more carrots kind of an approach, and it typically works in many places. And of course, an ancillary benefit, I know I'm running out of time, so an ancillary benefit would just be things like when you start doing this kind of thing, you will be able to build things like digital infrastructure and street furniture and stuff like that. So that's that was just the presentation I had to share with you guys. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Karthik. That was, thank you for sharing your international experiences on the what and how of smart connectivity. As TV sir mentioned that also that by 2025, we would all be on an average having 10 smart devices or using 10 smart devices. And especially with the global phenomenon of work from home, I think this is very important what you have just talked about. Our next speaker would be Shri Asif Kadian, Advisor QoS from the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. He's an ITS officer with over 25 years of experience in telecom. He is responsible for QoS issues in mobile and fixed line networks and also deals with net neutrality, cloud computing, and OTT-related issues. Earlier as Director Mobile in DOT, he was involved in standardization activities related to LTE networks at national and international levels. Sir, I request you to please give the theme presentation. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Arunji. Is screen visible?
Yes, sir. The screen is visible.
Okay. Thank you.
It's gone. Yes, now it's perfect, sir.
Yeah. So, in the inaugural session and in the starting speakers of the interactive session, we have listened to them, and usefulness and the importance of the quality of service is well established. Nothing more is required to be said. And speakers also suggested few approaches. They reiterated the earlier approaches, and they also proposed that what will be the new approaches which are required to be adopted. Sharing of infrastructure, setting up the standards or revising the standards like national building codes or revising model building bylaws was also mentioned, and requirement of setting best-in-class quality of service norms was also mentioned. And the solutions which were suggested were also meant for addressing the concerns of the cost, how we can reduce the cost by sharing the infrastructure. Secretary MoHUA also mentioned that how the activities can be aligned, that when roads are being constructed, buildings are being constructed, at the same time, whether we can have a common duct and we have an infrastructure which is shared, so that again and again the permissions are not required to be sought and infrastructure is not required to be laid. So basically, it is a plug and play kind of a environment if that can be made available. But quality of service, why we are discussing after 2.5 decades, whether we have 2.5 decades were not good enough to take signal inside the buildings. So we started from GSM, 2G, 3G, 4G, and the only requirement was to take the signal inside the buildings. Definitely means the reason may be difficult or challenging task, and the QoS is a complex issue. It is a messy issue. It is a multi-dimensional issue, but it is not intractable. What need to be required is not only this setting standards or setting norms or sharing the infrastructure. Probably they can solve one aspect of the concerns, but they may also create some other aspects of the concerns. So we have to look at the problems in totality. But if problems are complex, these are to be divided into pieces. And when we are discussing one issue, there may be few assumptions in the starting, which may be reasonable assumptions to start with, and to solve that problem. Once you solve a problem for a given scenario in a given context, then change your assumptions, test your assumptions, and revise your solutions. So what happens that whenever this problem is debated or discussed, sometimes we mix up economic aspects, political aspects, social aspects, and the engineering aspects. Sometimes we focus too much on the engineering aspects, and while the problem is a politico-economic problem. Engineering problems can be very easily solved. The professionals are available, expertise is there, tools and platforms are available, but there may be an issue related to the business models. There may be the other models which are required to be addressed. We have seen in last few years, the buildings which are compliant with the national building codes, the buildings owners or property owners who are not interested in the money. They are not demanding anything. They want to just follow the process laid out by the government or laid out by their organizations. But ultimately, they land up with a poor quality of network, poor quality of service. So my suggestion is that we need to relook at all the approaches, what we have in mind, and consider those approaches, revise the approaches, and reimagine the ways. It is not just to accelerate the path which we have laid out in the past. So what we did to solve the connectivity issue, right of way, rules were notified, and effort was to make it process simple, time bound, and rational. We have national building codes, and a chapter was introduced about the telecom and ICT enabling infrastructure. So physical layer requirements, cabling part, civil part, and electrical part was also there. That what is the room size, what is the enclosure size, where it should be there. So civil engineering part we might have considered. Building bylaws to give a legal force to the building codes and ensure that whatever is stipulated in the building codes and other parts are implemented. So those are in place. And if we try to find out how many states have aligned with these ROW rules and national building codes, we may find that many states have aligned. But probably problem has been solved or not, that may be relooked, and that may be ensured that and rechecked that yes, it is solved, or no, something more is required to be done. So for example, what is ROW? A right of way, whether just to enter inside the building, to have a connectivity to a particular room, entrance room is a ROW, or to reach to each floor is a ROW, or to reach inside every room is an ROW. What is a right of way? Or if a network planner demands so much sites, and as per his engineering requirement, those are permitted and those are not permitted, is a ROW. And if damage is to be assessed and compensation is to be demanded, what is the rule? What is the methodology? how to evaluate the compensation, whether it is a fair, it is a non-discriminatory, and things are in a transparent manner, how to ensure. And if telcos are approaching to the buildings at a different point in time, those may be in a different years and maybe for different purposes, they may be having a different technologies. So they are not at the same time, they are not approaching at the same time. So what is required to be done? And who requests? And who provides the permission? Who pays for it? And who assesses? Those are the questions to be answered. For example, in the Aero City Hotel, if the problem of the neighborhood is to be solved, the traffic which is going towards airport, if telcos want to put antennas on the, mount the antennas on the face of the building, whether it is a problem of ROW for that hotel, or whether hotel has to offer the support for the neighborhood, and whether the antennas which are to be put on these buildings will aesthetically match, or the antennas which are just green, some green camouflage is done, that is good enough to blend antennas with these buildings. So how is the acceptability of the solutions which the telcos or any infrastructure provider is demanding? Whether they are fulfilling the requirements of the property managers, of the property owners, they want to do something more, or the standardization or just minimum fundamental requirements are good enough. How to address those concerns? Next point is, whenever engineers are designing a solution, they are coming up with a set of sites, set of locations where base stations or the towers are to be put in. And there is not a unique solution. There may be a multiple solution. Suppose there is a one set, X1, X2, X3, and there is another solution, Y1 and Y2. Either you permit me for X1, X2, X3, or you permit me for Y1, Y2. It cannot be a mix of both, that you are giving 3 locations, 2 out of X, set X, and 1 out of set Y. That will not solve my problem. So how to discover a solution which is acceptable to the property manager? Whether I do have digital repositories of the infrastructures, all the street furnitures, all the building assets, where I can put the antenna, and I can negotiate and I can interact with the property manager in more digitally interactive processes. It may be an iterative process. It is not a one-time process that I am seeking a permission and they are giving me a permission, because it is a set of sites which are required, not part of one solution and part of the other solution. Another point which I would like to mention is that we have studied metro, airport metro, and we have found that number of antennas are mounted on the piers of this elevated metro train. Whether it is a ROW problem, because these piers are offering a solution to the road users, not for the metro. And whether it is an elegant solution, whether the power supplies which are required on these piers is made available by the metros, or telcos have to arrange the power points for these sites. Whether these sites cannot be installed at a better location, suppose on the parapet wall or on the electrical pole. So somebody may question, no, it cannot be done because these are not designed. So if engineering requirement of the telecom would have been considered at the time of designing this elevated metro section, probably there would have been an elegant solution, a better costly, less cost solution, because one footprint of one antenna may be larger. It is not confined to a small footprint because it is at a higher location. One example is that if you go to the Connaught Place and you see that it is a good coverage outside, even it is a good coverage in the corridor part of it. But when you enter into any coffee shop, like a Starbucks shop or a Nike showroom, any showroom, you will just enter and go inside 4 or 5 meters and signal will disappear. So it is not a problem of having a signal in the vicinity. It is a problem of few meters, 4 or 5 meters, and where cash counter is located. You are not able to make payment, digital payment. You are not able to share the picture of garments you want to purchase with your family and the friends. So it is solving a business problem. It is solving a problem of that businessman who has a shop there, and they are paying more than $150 per square feet. So it is too much. The solution which costs is not that costly. How to solve that problem? Whether telcos are supposed to solve every shop's problem by deploying a solution in each and every shop, or it can be done easily by the shopkeeper. Another case study, what we did was on a railway track. We have tested many railway tracks, but one important was the heritage line of Kalka to Shimla. Suppose you want to solve a problem of this heritage line, where you will put the towers? In the forest area? Who will provide you the electricity? The forest department? Why they will give? Whether the railway tracks can be equipped with poles very near to this railway track? Whether the traffic which emanates from this track is good enough to compensate or return for the investment which is required to be made for a good quality? How that is to be done? Whether the ROW, standardization, national building codes are good enough or adequate enough to solve all these kinds of problems. So it is a complex problem. And for every complex problem, there is one quote from H.L. Mencken, American journalist, that there is an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong. So people try to devise a simple solution and assume that it will solve the problems. And for decades, we wait that it will get solved. And at that time, we found, no, it was not adequate enough. So what is the requirement? Requirement is to devise a mechanism which is agile, because the life cycle of telecom technology is much shorter than the building and other kinds of infrastructure. And if we are not agile enough, we can solve the problem for that moment, for that particular time period, but not for entire life cycle. So we have seen the buildings where problem was solved, but again, they have landed into the problem. So one part is that to solve the complex problem is to divide it into the pieces and assume, make some assumptions and try to solve. When you end up with a solution, then test the assumption, then change, then tweak the solutions to accommodate all the assumptions or the change variances from the assumptions. So for discussions, today's discussion, suppose if I compare signal with the illumination. So if we want to illuminate the buildings and we want to illuminate from outside, or we want to illuminate every room, every corner of the building, how that is done. So previous speakers have compared that the problem of telecom is quite similar to the utility sector, water, gas, and others. And one difference was also mentioned was that in case of telecom, there are multiple operators, which is not the case of water pipeline. But there are many other things which are different from utility sector. One is that capacity requirement is quite dynamic and different from each user. What is the capacity requirement? Technology changes very fast, and it is very, you need not to have a water tap in every corner of the apartment, every nook and corner of the building. So those are at identified locations, while here case is quite different. So how the illumination problem is solved? So a previous speaker has mentioned that there is a standardization of electrical cables, quite a specific standards of cables are available. But we have a licensee of technicians who perform this duty. You can purchase, you can procure the electrical equipments from the open market, and you pay, as a user, you pay and get it solved. So regulator doesn't solve your illumination problem for each and every room of the apartment. The tenant or the owner or the building developer solves this illumination problem to a certain extent, and it is done in a cascaded manner. One by one, it is evolved and improved. And it is not same for all kinds of users. So one part and one aspect which is related to the regulator is that whether they can set best-in-class quality of service. So it is an example of multi-storied building, whether it is a good quality of service available inside this building. So colors denotes the quality of service. So it is not completely green. Part of it is a red, and part of it is a yellow, and part of it is a green. So how I should rate it? How I should declare as a regulator that it is a covered or not covered? So somebody will say that you take statistical measures, that if 90% of this building is covered, then assume it is covered. But the 10%, suppose there are 1,000 dwelling units in this building, and 100 apartments are not having a good coverage, and you assume that it is a good building. And those 100 users, apartment residents, will continue to suffer. They will not be able to work from home. They will not be able to do their basic functions, whether it can be considered as an acceptable. And whatever green, red, yellow is shown in this building is from outside. It is not ensuring that it is green in every part of this room inside the apartment. So what solution was being developed so far, and what has been done is that it is an outside in approach. So some base stations and antennas are installed outside, and the permissions to install or deploy these antennas are taken from the property managers, and they illuminate from outside and accept that there will be some green inside this building. But practically, if you want to have see that what user expects inside the apartment may not be exactly this green. So a lady sitting in the apartment, if she wants that it should be a illumination which is adequate for reading. It is not for common works. It is for reading. So illumination requirement is different. And then the suggestion is that we can have a pole or antenna or a small cell installed inside the building, or there is an access point which is inside the building, and it will give a good coverage. So even we have seen that the access points which are installed inside the apartment are not ensuring that you are having a good quality in every room. So even when network operators are reaching to the entry point, entry gate of the apartment, they are reaching inside the apartment. Even that is not guaranteeing, or that is not meeting the expectations of the user. So there is a green, red, and yellow, and it is a non-uniform inside the apartment. It is non-uniform inside the premises. It is not same. So whatever statistical measure you try to take, and this picture is a time dependent. In morning, afternoon, evening, it may be different. So the challenging part of assessment, we have captured in one of our report in wireless speed data measurement report, which is available on TRA website. So when we are looking at the problem, I would like to quote of Albert Einstein, that everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. So we should be cautious that whether we are making solutions simple or we are making doing oversimplification and not addressing the concerns. That is important. So I will quickly go through the rest of the slides and then we can have a discussions. One part is that one size doesn't fit all. The spectrum or a range of solutions are required, and there may be a personalized solutions, and those personalized solutions may be requested by that particular customer, and they may be required to be allowed to get it implemented. If it is a certified product and work has been carried out by the certified professionals, that should be acceptable. Then only we can solve the problem. Next is principal agent problem. The resident welfare associations, which are elected representatives, and those are supposed to solve the problem of the residents, whether their actions are in line or in accordance with the requirements of the users, or whether their actions adversely affects the quality of service. That is important. So how to devise a mechanism that the interests of the flat owners are served. And we have observed in government buildings and government public infrastructures that the property managers try to select some infrastructure provider who will solve the problem of that building or that area or that track, railway track. And that during that identification and the selection process, they try to follow guidelines issued by the government, how to select, how to be fair in the selection, how to ensure that there is no loss and the revenue comes to the government. But in this process, they address one aspect which is required to be done, but they don't address. They create problem for the other aspects, and monopoly is created because of the exclusivity. So we have seen in the cantonment area, in the metro trains, in the airport, in many locations where exclusivity is creating a problem. So sharing of infrastructure is expected to reduce the cost, but whether the reduction of the cost is translated into the better quality of network, not guaranteed. Not guaranteed, because there are other aspects, other factors which are coming in and creating problems. The information asymmetry, that if I request for as a customer, I request for a solution, how much it costs. So somebody says that small cells are too costly. But many solutions are too costly because there is no economy of scale. There is no certified professional, there is no market functioning to get the right price. And the preferences are not time consistent. When people are going to purchase apartments, at that time they are not looking at the quality of network which will be available. How the requirement of the owner of the apartment can be captured at right time, and that can be ensured. Whether it is the only telcos who know what is required and they design the network, and they are for sure that whatever they are designing, as TV Ramachandran sir has said in the beginning, that 14 Mbps is good enough. What is good enough is not for everybody. So what is good enough, what is required, how we capture that requirement, how we personalize, how we customize, and how we ensure that we are meeting that requirement. So there should be some mechanism that enables this and ensures this. And as we discussed, that a monopoly creates problems. So what is required to be done is that align the rules, align the incentives, and it should be improved based on the experiences. It is not only with the sharing of the infrastructure or setting up the norms or setting up the standards. There are few more things. Those are essential requirements, fundamentally essential requirements, but those are not adequate. So we need to do something more. And solution should be available for home or business enterprises, how they can solve their problem. And there should be an advocacy of consistent solutions, how to build the good quality network, engage with the users, end users, and develop the process. So what we suggest and what we found is that that end user participation is very important. And the ownership of the infrastructure, enterprise building infrastructure or the resident building infrastructure is also important. Who owns it? It is not necessary that who builds it is owns it. There may be a person who owns. So what Karthik has mentioned in its presentation, and what I liked was that, is there a tool or a platform which can enable that a person or a property manager who doesn't have a knowledge or zero skill, zero knowledge can also get it deployed because it is enabled by the technology. So how they can do it? So right of way looks to be quite authoritative to me, that one request seeks the permission, another provides the permission, agrees, grants the permission. Or it is a co-design and co-creativity which is required to be done. So we need to be more engaged, not to be engaged only in the beginning part. We need to be engaged during the design part, during the deployment part, and during the maintenance part of it. So whether the revision of the building codes in a manner which is available today is good enough, or we need to decouple and make the this code part more agile, so it can be quickly changed. It can be personalized and customized to the different clusters. Who can administer it? Who can ensure that it is implemented? It is the building part, or it is a specialist or the experts who can do it in a better way, because it needs a nuanced understanding of the wireless technology. So if spectrum is involved, or the services are involved, experiences are involved, which is quite domain specific knowledge. So if you want to have an ecosystem with the certified professionals, evaluation processes, and approval processes, how that can be done. So one part is that to give a legal force to it. Other is that to keep it agile, to keep it, to make it innovative, that innovation can play its role. It is not so prescribed in a manner that it kills the innovation. So we have published a monograph on the quest for good quality network inside multi-story buildings. And what is important is that co-creation is the most important. And through that, we can achieve from a low quality to the high quality. And we can have a 5-star or a gold standard quality inside the building if we wish to have so. So finally, TRI has proposed pilot projects to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and we want to develop a model framework. And for that model framework, one proposal is related to the Central Vista, which is coming up. And if we can have, we can engage in a better manner, we can engage all the relevant stakeholders and can ensure that the network which comes up in this Central Vista meets the expectations, not of current requirements, but also of the future requirements. And we can learn what changes are required in the rules, policies that can be done. And 2 cities we have identified, and we have made proposal to them. One is Ahmedabad, and the other is the Bhopal smart cities, where we want to have outdoor network and other ROW problems, and what can be done as a model. Second point is that digital platforms which can be explored. The interesting part is that what Karthik has mentioned in his presentation, that there are intelligent tools who can develop files or capture the digital repositories of the street furnitures. So if Ministry of Housing, Urban Affairs, property managers, and others are having a digital repositories, those are exposed on the request basis to the network planners. So one digital platform is available with the telecom sector, another is with the real estate sector, and the ROW problem is it's not just writing a letter and getting a permission. It is a technologically enabled interactive process where you discover what is the appropriate solution, which fulfills the requirement of telecom service provider, fulfills the requirement of users, fulfills the requirement of the builders, or any stakeholder who is participating in this. How we can have enriched information systems of buildings. And last point is that what is required is rapidly adapt, continually improve, and relentlessly innovate, because it is a complex problem, multidimensional problem, and always changing environment and changing context. Thank you.
Thank you so much, for your excellent presentation and bringing up the most important point being constantly adapt, innovate. I'll hand over to Debashish Bhattacharya now for the.
Sorry. I'm back. Yeah, apologies. Thank you, Mr. Kadian, for your, as Rajat has correctly said, cautioning us on the challenges faced in service delivery. Mentioning that we need an innovative and agile manner in responding to all the new developments taking place. Thank you for that, sir. I wish to introduce Mr. S.K. Gupta, Secretary TRAI, who is the chair of this session, and he would be also chairing the interactive session coming up now, which Mr. Debashish Bhattacharya would be moderating. We're very grateful to Mr. S.K. Gupta for having taken time out to spend. In fact, he has been with us throughout the inaugural session also. And we thank you, sir, for having taken time out and joined us for this very important meeting. TV sir, you wanted to say something? You raised your finger?
No, you finish, and then I'd like to say a couple of words.
Sure, sir. Sorry. With that, I would like to hand over to my colleague Debashish Bhattacharya for moderating the next session. And TV sir, please, your.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Arun. At the outset, I want to say that session is going very well. Our chair for this session is Mr. S.K. Gupta, and I cannot thank him enough for having spared time to be here, to direct the proceedings, because now the interactive session is, we think, the most important part of the whole thing, where people are going to exchange opinions, get directions and all, and he's going to preside over it. Mr. S.K. Gupta is always been a great supporter and encouraging innovations and development and standardization. And with this being available in this milestone event, like I said in the introductory address in the morning, this is a real milestone following upon the TRA's initiative last year of having a workshop on this quality of service in building. And we want to carry on the good work initiated by TRAI and work with MoHUA and TRAI to provide better service to customers. And customer at the forefront has always been the theme of TRAI, championed by Mr. S.K. Gupta and his team, always. They put that foremost. So I now earnestly request Mr. Gupta, Secretary Saab, to come take over and please first address with a few introductory words to give direction to the interactions and proceed to direct the interactions and help us to see a way of going forward. And at the end of that, we'd look forward to your concluding address, sir. Over to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, TV. As always, you are too praiseworthy to us, which may not be deserved like. And I have been hearing to Mr. Sanjeev, Dheeraj, Mr. Karthik, and my colleague, Mr. Asit, and others. It's a very nice discussions going on, and it's exactly on the track. But there are certain things which I like to, tell in the starting. I was director in ALTTC Ghaziabad. And then one day I asked that what you expect from my course. Then I asked some people, somebody says something, okay, I want to learn this, I want to learn that, and all these things. But one person which was very peculiar and generally the representative of the society said, I don't know anything. My boss has sent me here. That's why I'm here. So I was really shocked that, in a course, which is a technical course, and somebody is telling that since my boss has asked me to be here, so I am here. And Maneka, what I'll do afterwards, I will report back to my boss and I will see that what duty he assigned to me. And completely ignorant, or rather not giving any importance to the course. So I thought over like that, and thereafter I felt that he's right. Because people receive the thing when they are in need. People don't listen to you properly when they don't want that particular thing to be used. And that's the exact analogy here. Why should I be so much concerned about in-building solution now if I have not been earlier? And what is so great which has happened, why everybody has started talking about in-building solution when you have not talked for last 20 years. Now that's very fundamental. Let us first talk and start the basics right before we move to more complex issues, as Asit has pointed out. When we were in 2000, it was more of the fixed line, of course, very limited, but it was more of the fixed line, and there was no such problem like penetration to the houses or availability of the signal into the rooms and all these things. Slowly, when we developed, it was 2G, 3G, 4G, and now we are talking about the 5G, which is at the verge to be launched. The 2G services were primarily provided by 900 spectrum band. So as you know, that lower spectrum bands has got better penetration capacity. So therefore, even if there is one wall or two wall, and TV is very old hand and he knows all the things very well. So first of all, there were two differences. Number one, it was a voice call, and number second was it was on a lower band. So because of that, though there were problems, but the problems were not so great, and therefore people somehow managed to work, though that type of infrastructure and in-building solutions were not available at that point of time also. So what happened? People are coming, leaning on the balcony and something here and there, and somehow they are able to manage and talk. But as we moved to 3G, we came to 1800, where penetration is still worse. Then we went to 4G, penetration is still worse, which is about 21, 2400, even 25 also is being used. We are talking about the 5G, which is again 3500 megahertz, which is even penetration is far more worse than we can think of about 90. And coverage point of view, if we take a benchmark of 1800, 3.5 is just about 30% of the coverage which can be given by that, number one. Number second, while voice call you do most time moving, the data usage is mostly when you are stationary. It's not that, of course, I can see WhatsApp, I can see some simpler things. But if I had to do some constructive work, which requires more data, then I will require a stationary position where I am going to use that particular thing, be it office or be it a residence. And that is why data also suggests that around 80% of data utilization is from the fixed location than the mobile locations. The second thing. Third thing is a new normal. What is the new normal? Why we were not too much concerned before COVID, and why all of a sudden we all are very much concerned about the good quality broadband inside the house? Because in the new normal after COVID, it is not the centralized location of huge data utilization. My office has got 800 GB connectivity. And if there are 200 people or 300 people are sitting over there, there is no problem. At the desk, I am getting a very fast connectivity already. So that's not a problem. And generally, office buildings are having optical fiber connectivity, or we have got some sort of well laid down infrastructure which we can use. I am not talking about all the offices, but I am talking about the repetitive offices, particularly the bigger offices. Now, what happened? All of a sudden, after COVID, every home has become an office. Every home has become a school. Every home has become a theater. And because of that, if there are 3 people in the home, all 3 requires different rooms to talk to their offices and do the office work and all these things. And therefore, all 3 rooms require a good connectivity. And that is where the precise problem is. Inside the rooms, I am not getting good connectivity even earlier. Earlier, I am able to manage because the work which I was doing off office hours was minuscule. But today, I am doing wholehearted work which I am supposed to do. So therefore, this won't work. Second thing, which is again very important, that is, there are certain bylaws which permits provision of certain infrastructure. And because of that particular infrastructure, some sort of cables are going to the different buildings and all these things. And Mr. Dheeraj was pointing out that we are sharing that, and from that we can provide the connectivity. One conceptually wrong notion which has developed is the provision of services vertically. Meaning thereby, if I am a telecom operator, I will manage everything to provide telecom service. If I am some other thing, I will make all the arrangements to provide these things. Now, this vertical integration is not going to work for a long. See, if there is an electricity connection required, I run from pillar to post. Somehow you come and install the transformer and meters, etc., so that I can get the connectivity. And I never ask them that pay me some 2 lakhs rupees. In fact, I am ready to pay him. Why it is other way around? That when my telecom service provider goes, instead of supporting him by his additional cost to provide the infrastructure in that building, he is being asked to pay more. That's absolutely wrong. This wrong notion has to be changed. How it can be changed? That there has to be some sort of minimum standard to be developed to provide the telecom services within the buildings. Let all telecom service provider obey by that particular understanding. That's very, very important. We still recall that I was dealing with the project MOST to provide the sharing of the towers. Mr. Ramchandran very well knows that. And there was no agreement coming up at that point of time for sharing of the tower. Today, do you recall to tell anybody to share the tower? No. Because people have learned how useful this particular thing. People recognize that there is a requirement of infrastructure provider, and that infrastructure is being very, very aptly managed to give basis to telecom service providers. The similar manner we had to move forward, try to recognize that all households has to be provided a good infrastructure, and that good infrastructure has to be managed by the qualified people. It is not a one-time job where I can say this is a standardized optical fiber cable. You pull this particular cable in the house of everybody, and I guarantee that everybody will get the good quality of service. No, it is not going to be. The reason being is that life of house is average 50 years. Life of telecom technology is 5 years. So how can you match 50 years with the 5 years? Now, issue is, do you have good infrastructure providers available as of now? Somebody talked about the industry certification. Do you really have experts who can suggest what is to be done to ensure that every nook and corner of the house gets the good coverage? Do you feel that one-time solution would meet the requirement of the individuals? Perhaps not. And therefore, there is a need not only to prescribe and modify the bylaws, but also to develop agencies like certifiers who can certify, like people who will be able to give their services for designing of the network inside the big societies or the buildings. It is not only for the smart cities. It is for the smart cities definitely, because they are going to start now, but still for the existing societies. What exactly can be done over there? There are also a lot of concern. And I can tell you, 5G will not serve its purpose if we are not able to provide good quality of services. Now, somebody will say, okay, I have heard you and you are too much concerned about good quality of service. That's good, but TRAI was never concerned like that earlier. So it's good that TRAI is awakening up. No, it's not only that. Telecom today has become critical infrastructure. If you talk about economy of the country, you have to talk about the health of the telecommunication. Economy of country will not grow unless you ensure that telecom itself grows fast, provides quality of service, gives support to everybody, and then only you can think of that. There are hundreds of use cases which are other than telecom, and all them we are going to contribute drastically and in a great manner to the development of the economy as a whole. Be it education, entertainment, office work, agriculture, e-commerce, e-health, whatsoever you may talk about, all requires telecommunication. Now, the fundamental question is how it is going to happen. First of all, somebody says, because there are bylaws are very distributed, it's a state subject, and in state subjects, there are different laws, regulations, orders issued. So one group has to be formed, which looks into all the legal provisions and what requires to be modified in the developing prospect. The second is different type of builders, their associations, RWAs, they have to be taught about the importance of telecommunication and somehow convinced that you have to change your mindset to penalize the telecom service provider by asking money from them to provide the service. In fact, it is you who require the services and not the telecom service provider. Just for sake of trying to understand, a building, even bigger building, will be having 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people. And by 10,000 people per month income, if a service provider can get with all the customers together, it will be minuscule as compared to money being demanded by them. So they have to be told very clearly that this is absolutely wrong. You have to correct yourself, because we are doing the service to your people who are residing in your society or in office or in any apartments, rather than I am earning money from them. And if all telecom service provider come at least on the minimum consideration that we'll be sharing the infrastructure inside the buildings and will not be competing to pay more to get into a building or society, I think it will be great service to ourselves. With these words, thank you very much for giving me opportunity. And no, thanks a lot, Mr. TV. You are too senior to me, and I can't see you folding hand. So thanks a lot to you. You are just like my father figure, and I always rather respect you in that particular perspective. Thanks a lot for giving me opportunity. But I will request the people available on this forum, please think seriously. It's a very, very serious issue. It has no ready solutions, I can tell you. Of course, slightly going away. Some people were telling that there are solutions. Yes, solution will always come. But for that, a deep thought process is required. A deep road has to be made. A deep analysis has to be done. A deep action has to be taken by all the stakeholders so that we can build our future today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that was marvelous. I've not heard such an awesome perspective and insightful address before. I think you rightly said so many things which many people take for granted. And things are going to become very difficult with 5G. Unless we solve these now, with the higher frequency, as you rightly said, people don't realize the complexities that will arise. And what telecom has meant for this nation, I think you're beautifully brought out. I think I can't thank you enough. I think it's a wonderful direction for us. I really thank you. Would you be able to stay, sir, for the end?
I will be here another for about 10 to 15 minutes, and thereafter
Great.
I have to. Right.
Great, sir. It's so nice of you. I know you've got so many other engagements. So kind of you to stay so long and give us this beautiful address. Please stay as long as you're comfortable. And I think this has set the tone for the discussions. We look forward to hearing more from you in due course. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's my pleasure and honor to now introduce everyone, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, good afternoon, and it's my pleasure and honor to introduce the speakers of the interactive session to you. We have Secretary Sir, who has already given his opening remarks. Besides that, we have Mr. Sushil Kumar Narnoni, DDG Civil from DOT, as the first speaker of the interactive session. Mr. Narnoli is an alumnus of IIT Roorkee. He holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in environmental engineering. Prior to serving in the Department of Telecom, he has served in several key positions under the Communications Ministry, Government of Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh, and PCC Mumbai and Kolkata, having successfully led several projects. With these few words, I would request Mr. Narnoli to kindly say a few words as regards the topic for today, which is how to have improve the quality of service inside the buildings for improving the digital infrastructure in the inside the building. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Narnoli.
Thank you, Bhattacharya.
Thank you.
Namaskar to all the participants.
Sir, you may kindly switch on your video if possible, sir. I'll be grateful. Thank you, sir.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Namaskar to all the participants. Sri S.K. Gupta ji, Secretary Tribe, and other senior members, Sri Ramachandran Sahab, members of the BIF. I was wondering when I got a call from the BIF to be a part of this event and speak out on the subject. I was wondering that I'm a engineer and what am I going to do with this high-tech topic of 2G, 4G? I hardly understand any G. And everybody is talking of the very high technical subject. But I was made to understand, I was convinced by the BIF that I'm a civil engineer, unlike the other engineering stream, like the mechanical, chemical, or communication engineering, that who are known by the work that they are doing. But I'm a civil engineer, and I'm called civil engineer and not a structural engineer or a building construction engineer, because a civil engineer is the one who fits in everywhere, and that is why I get the opportunity today to come and be a part of this August gathering. It's really a pleasure. See, when I was young, I'm a civil engineer, so I understand very little about this telecom infrastructure and this networking. But one thing is clear to everyone, a common man, including me as a civil engineer, that unless I have a BB connection around, And for my understanding, it is only plugging in the LAN cable and having my connectivity with the world, rest of the world. It is impossible to live in this world. See, when I was young in 80s, when I was there in the school, we were made to understand three things about the life. You need three things to live in this world, that is roti, kapda, and makan. But in the 21st century, the fourth dimension is added to our life, that is roti, kapda, makan, and broadband. We cannot think of life without a broadband today. And if you ask the youngster of today to choose only 3 out of these 4, I think they will happily choose roti, makan, and broadband. They can manage without the second. And if you are still stringent and ask them to choose 2 only, they would choose roti and broadband. Though I wish as a civil engineer that they choose for the makan, but that's a reality today. Because they won't mind sitting down under a banyan tree with a broadband connection around and ordering pizza or a burger from their device using the broadband connection. So that's a reality today, and broadband today is something which is unthinkable to live without. We all need to have a connection. No matter whether we are in a business or in any other engineering stream or maybe in the health sector, any sector, private, government, individual, society, everybody needs it. See, I live in a government accommodation which was constructed sometime in 60s, about 60, 70 years back, when RCC, the basic construction material, which was developed sometime in 1940s. And this is a load-bearing structure. The walls are made up of brick and the roof is of RCC, reinforced cement concrete. I wanted to see that in those days, even the hook for hanging the ceiling fan was not embedded at the time of casting of the slab. Similarly, the conduits for laying the electrical cable, they were not embedded in the concrete during the casting. Though subsequently in the walls, they have been embedded by engrooving a hole because it is possible in the brickwork, but it is not possible in the concrete. So the cable for the electrical work is still hanging outside. And I don't know if some architect is there. It's a nightmare for them to see the interiors of the building with those hanging cables, those hanging conduits. Similarly, the things are not indifferent in the exterior of the building. The architect takes all the pain. They design a beautiful building both from inside as well as the outside. They take all the pain, and we civil engineers try to make it realize, try to make it happen and construct as per their ideas. But subsequently what we find is all these buildings, whether it is a multi-story or a single-story building, everywhere the cables are hanging, and they are all primarily the telecom infrastructure, telecom cables. And this is inevitable. We have to have it. Without this, we cannot think of life today. But I wonder when we can do it for the electrical infrastructure. Today, for having an electrical infrastructure, we don't require an electrical person to enter in our house. He would come, the electrical supply company would come and connect the power supply at the meter outside the building itself, maybe somewhere at the ground floor, maybe in the parking area, even for a 20-story building, and he doesn't require to enter even in the floor of the building. I wonder why it cannot happen for the telecom sector, for the telecom infrastructure. See, when I was there in 90s in the Department of Telecom, we were constructing the telephone exchange buildings. Sometimes we also required to hire those buildings because in small places, we had the urgency of hiring the buildings. So when we are hiring the building, primarily they were residential buildings. And we are finding it very, very difficult to provide entry for the cables for the telephone exchanges. and we had to make a hole in the wall, and it was creating a lot of problem. Even it was danger for the safety of the building. But subsequently, we developed, devised, and we were then started providing integrated cable duct inside the MDF room. And it was working so fine that one cannot even understand that how the cables are entering into the building. It is helping the telecom engineers also in getting the connection from outside to inside. I think we have come a long way in this 21st century, and we need to fix up the protocol, standardize the process, the procedure for laying of the telecom infrastructure in all the upcoming buildings. And this can happen only with the introduction of the provision in the NBC, National Building Code. I'm happy that the BIF has collaborated with the MO, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, because they are the nodal agency who can make it happen in the National Building Code. And once it happens, once it is made a part of the NBC, it would automatically go down, percolate down, because there's a guideline, there's a Gita for the construction engineers. It will automatically be followed by all the stakeholders. Sorry. Even for the regulators like the local bodies who clear the plan, because they also have no idea how to enforce it. So unless it is made a part of the NBC, because even at the state level, what I have seen, the state public works department who are constructing the public buildings, they hardly have any idea about this infrastructure. And most of them also follow the NBC. So I think we should do it sooner than later, that we finalize a protocol, a specification, and standardize this entire networking system for all future upcoming buildings, so that it invariably becomes a part of the building. Like as we see in the case of an electrical network, today if somebody is constructing a building in the village, maybe in the countryside, and you will find that even if there is no engineer, this information, this skill or understanding is there even at the mason level, that before casting of the roof, he will ensure that those electrical cables are there inside. Whatever electrical infrastructure is required, he will ensure that it is there before finalizing the building. So I wonder why it cannot happen. I think we should, without wasting any time, we should immediately have this provision, this protocol standardized, finalized, and made a part of the NBC. And one more thing I would like to add at the end, that in this building construction affair, we have some electrical engineer also who are a part of this building construction process, like in the CPWD, in our department of telecom, and even in the state level. And they take care of the electrical infrastructure, and they understand better about the cabling, requirement of electrical infrastructure. And architect, as the director of the building, as the overall idea that they conceive, they try to make it on the paper, and we as a civil engineer try to make it realize. So if they are involved with this entire process, and electrical engineer also have the fairly good idea about the the telecom infrastructure requirement, those data requirement of the cables, and what cable is actually required, whether it is an OFC or a copper cable. So what kind of connectivity is required, and what all cables or the wiring is required to be done before a building is finalized. I think if they are trained on this aspect, I don't see any difficulty in finding it happen in near future. So I once again thank the BIF for taking this very important aspect, very important topic of today, and we have been waiting for long that it should happen sooner than later. And I'm sure that in in the days to come, we will have this protocol available in our NBC, and all future buildings in the government, in the country, may it be a public building, government building, residential quarter, public utility building, hospital, school, or a commercial building, all will have this infrastructure readily available, and it will also reduce the repetitive cost that every time a resident is changing. So we will have this protocol, I'm sure for this, and with the initiative of the BIF, it would happen sooner than later. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Mr. Ramachandran and all his team.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nanoli. Thank you so much for those excellent thoughts regarding how to standardize building bylaws and to make sure that going forward, digital infrastructure and broadband connectivity becomes an essential part of all in-building solutions. Thank you, sir. With this, I now invite our next speaker, which happens to be Mr. R. Srinivas. Mr. Srinivas is the Advisor Town and Country Planning Organization, TCPO, from Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. An integral part of the TCPO, he has been an integral part of the TCPO since 1991 and heads the Metropolitan and Union Territories Division. He has represented the TCPO in various committees, including the Panel for Information and Communication Enabled Installation for National Building Code 2015 and Developing Standards for Smart Cities of the Bureau of Indian Standards. Mr. Srinivas has been an absolutely the pillar, one of the pillars who has been instrumental in having this session today. So we thank you, sir, and at the outset, and now hand over the floor to you for your words, kind words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I am audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And dignitaries of BIF and participants. I will, speak from the point of town planning or from the urban planning perspective. For kind information of all the participants, Town and Country Planning Organization, I mean, it's a technical organization of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and we are administering the geographical information system based master plan for Amrit cities. And Amrit cities or towns are those which have got more than 1 lakh population. And all out of 500 cities, 465 cities are in different stage of preparing the GIS-based master plan. Now, what GIS master plan actually facilitates? Actually, it facilitates creation of utility layers, I mean different infrastructure layers, and enables automatic distribution of ducts and network cable mapping across the neighborhood from distribution points to individual house connection. And the GIS-based solution generates detailed cable and duct routes that require minimum manual adjustment in the network plans and helps minimize inefficient manual effort and significantly cut the cost of infrastructure projects. Now, let me tell you, typically, all the cities are supposed to prepare master plans, and there is a hierarchy of preparing a plans. The first level is master plan. Master plan is a blueprint for the plan development for entire city, and master plan is typically disaggregated into zonal plans, zonal development plans. And if I mention about the master plan of Delhi 2021, it is the master plan is divided into 15 zones, and each zone is each zone has got zonal development plan, and further zonal development plan actually can be disaggregated into layout plans. Now it's very much important through GIS map, when we create different layers, it becomes easier for the the internet supply providers, internet service providers or the telecommunication company, where to lay down the optic fiber cables. It becomes very easy if you have a digital layout plan. It becomes very easy to fix up the alignment of the optic fiber cables. Now, secretary, just after completing his address, he directed me to work on a separate chapter on information and communication install system. I think since we have got very limited knowledge of the telecommunication, I will humbly request the BIF to kindly constitute a committee on it. So then we can deliberate. I mean, if we have, the representation of BIS, of course, if NBC is going to get, revised, I think Sanjay Pant is already here. He can further, throw light on that. But if we constitute a committee, we can have representation of, the DOT, BIS, as well as the, the mobile operators, mobile companies. So I think what we can do is we can attempt a draft, and then we can circulate to you for your comments. And thereafter, I mean, we can have a deliberation through a committee. That's what Secretary, directed me to look into that. I think these are my very brief comments, because I have to again go for another meeting, because I think I'm already delayed. So I'll be in touch with the BIF officials, and then definitely we look forward, and we have to ensure that we need to, I mean, have a last house connectivity in terms of optic fiber. So that ultimately we have to, work for the welfare of the people. I mean, the basic objective of preparing the master plans or zonal development plans or layout plan is basically the, ensuring health and safety of the citizens. I think with the, we are having the revolution in, IT sector, and if companies are offering, the gigabyte, I mean, what we are having the average speed of, around, it is around, what I could get the figure, that 46.47 Mbps average is the India speed. And if companies are migrating to, 5G, and when we are going to have a gigabyte, I mean, I think we are really, I mean, going for a very bright future in telecommunications. But at the same time, I would also like to know, I would also like to tell that we had sent the advisories to all the state governments regarding the right of way permission for the, utilities, especially the pipelines, CNG pipelines. Similarly, we can also send the advisories to all the state governments with regard to right of permission to the telecommunication companies. And Secretary also mentioned that under the ease of doing business, 2 cities have totally gone online with regard to 2 cities which are case studies for World Bank ease of doing business, Mumbai and Delhi. But at the same time, 2,200 towns and cities have totally migrated to online building permission system. So similarly, we also need to request all the state governments, I mean, directing their urban local bodies and urban development authorities, or whichever agency, I mean, which owns the roads, to streamline the, process of giving the right of way permission. If it is online, I think, the telecommunication companies or the mobile operators will bring lot of use to these companies. And with that, these are my brief comments. And of course, I will always be in touch with the BIF officials. And further, we are going to, I mean, we look forward for, coming up with the regulations which can bring ease to the the operators, mobile operators. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think, Debu, with your kind permission, I'll just butt in. Mr. Srinivas, we really cannot thank you enough, because like Debu said, this entire session is due to you. You have been the prime mover behind the creation of this.
It's my duty, sir.
No. I think it's been a great pleasure for the team to work with you. And we assure you that whatever you need, we'll help to work with you and put all our resources. This entire committee of Mr. Sanjeev Bedekar is completely committed to it. Mr. Sanjeev Bedekar, Mr. Dheeraj Sharma, Mr. Umang Das, everybody is completely committed to this goal of connectivity for every citizen inside buildings. So we are with you on that. And what I liked very much, sir, was your kind offer to provide guidelines to the states like you did for utility. We'd like to come to you for that. I think that will be very, very useful, sir.
Sure, absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Srinivas, sir. Thank you, Srinivas, sir, for your time and for being the prime mover, as Mr. Ramachandran said, for hosting this session. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. With this, we now move on to the next speaker for this interactive session, which is Mr. Sanjay Pant. Mr. Sanjay Pant is the head of civil engineering in Bureau of Indian Standards. He holds over 32 years of rich experience in diverse areas of civil engineering and buildings, including planning and housing, National Building Code of India, buildings and facilities for persons with disabilities,
sustainable development and quality control. He authored a series of papers on standardization, consumer protection, quality assurance, etc. With this, I hand over the floor to Mr. Sanjay Pant. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya. All the senior officials and the organizers over here. A very warm good afternoon to all of you and all the participants as well. On the provisions of National Building Code, I think you would understand that ultimately it is part of a building or part of the city, and whenever it is integrated into a building, there may be a separate domains which are integrated into a building, whether it is water supply, drainage, sanitation, the lighting and ventilation or mechanical ventilation, air conditioning, heating, and then your acoustic, sound insulation, noise control, and then your lifts, escalators, moving walks, and similarly this is also integrated into the buildings. So therefore it was agreed that see, I was associated in the last two revision of the National Building Code, NBC 2005, the first one. There we thought that something should be addressed on this front. So we, in the electrical chapter itself, we said electrical and allied installations. So we slightly started dealing as early as in NBC 2005. The chapter which was actually drafting was started in 2003. So since 2003 we were thinking how to get into this domain, and some beginning was made in NBC 2005. But the next NBC 2016, which we started drafting in NBC in 2014, there we thought that this is the right time. We have sufficient knowledge today to introduce a new chapter on one of the building services. So there are already other building services which are already documented over there. So we decided, and then we prepared a chapter. And this is the isolated first ever attempt in this particular field, and we could succeed to some extent. The chapter now, which is along with other services, this is section 6, information communication enabled installations, is part of the part 8 building services of NBC 2016, and it covers as you many of you know, it covers requirements for IC enabled installation, technology systems, cabling installations in a building, basic design and integration of for telecommunication spaces in buildings, which we talk today, cabling infrastructure, their pathway components, passive connectivity hardware, installation of different communication equipment, cable terminations, power connections, general guidelines for planning and providing ICT services in a building at the planning and execution stage, both of them, and is also applicable at the time of upgradation of existing facilities for properly accommodating the telecom systems and services. And then there are certain indicative provisions also for data centers are also given. Now, the other aspects that which have been covered here are in terms of various telecommunication spaces, which include equipment room, telecommunication room, entrance facilities, telecommunication enclosures, and with the considerations which have been given to all these in terms of accessibility, acoustics, noise level, administration, cable separation, the ceilings, the conduits, the trays, slots, sleeves, ducts, dust and static electricity related issues, the electrical power related issues, and then prevention from flooding, then the lighting, location, environmental control, fire protection, bonding and grounding. In fact, we tried to cover, with the limitation of knowledge at that time, the entire gamut of the issues that may be involved in information communication enabled installation, because we treat in building code, we have treated diverse areas, as I told you. Air conditioning, heating, mechanical ventilation, lighting, electrical installations, acoustics, sound insulation, noise control, air conditioning, lifts, escalators, even moving walks, which we call travelators. So this is as diverse as all of these are there. In fact, this is connected to all other building services also, because today you have water supply, which is also intelligent way. Electrical is also, whenever you move in and out of the building, you can control the various operations of other building services also. from that point of view, this building service is also integrated with the other building services, because we have given in the NBC the smart solutions also for other services also. When a building is constructed, the most important aspect remains the services. So these services, how these are operated. So most of the green buildings or sustainable buildings actually are evolved around embodied energy and operational energy. The operational energy is large today's context is it is controlled through IT systems. So and we have I know because we keep on interacting and keep on visiting buildings, we see that you can almost everything can be operated through IT solutions today. All services, whether it is lights, you're sitting in your office, you can control your lights in your home, and similarly the air quality index and everything can be controlled today. So it is integrated and it has been covered in the NBC. Now the second thing is what NBC covers. It covers distinctly two aspects: administrative requirement, how to implement the provisions of the code. Second is technical requirement. So what so far I talked about is the technical requirement, which have been covered. In the administrative requirement also, it covers how these building services have to be implemented at state level. It is a state subject, as somebody mentioned, entry number 35 of the Schedule 7 of the Constitution of India, and also under the 74th Constitutional Amendment, it remains the state subject. It has to be regulated through the local building bylaws or building regulations, and the building regulations in turn are framed based on the administrative provisions of the National Building Code, giving reference to the technical provisions of the National Building Code. So we have a chapter part 2 administration and part 3 development control rules and general building requirements. The chapter says how the local body has to function, how the various building services plans have to be submitted by the utility engineers. So all those things are already covered there. Now what I would require because we have a standing panel, we have 22 panels to deal with 33 chapters of NBC. There is a standing panel here also. The main contributor in this is the various players. These players today are Association of Unified Telecom Service Providers of India, and BIC, Cellular Operators Association of India, and then of course the CMI Association of India, DOT, Gift City, and then you have MITI, then Telecom System Design and TSDMA, and then there are individual players also are there. Then government, CPWD, railways, and other organizations, they are already part. We can involve more people in the same panel. This panel is headed by Mr. A.K. Mittal, retired senior DDG DOT, and he gave a tremendous contribution in drafting of this chapter along with the other officials of DOT. So we are ready to revise this chapter and include and replace this chapter with a new chapter, and so that as many people said that, see, if we do not revise the entire NBC right now, the chapter gets replaced. Each chapter of the 33 is separately serial numbered, so that this can be replaced. 1 to 61 page of this chapter can be replaced by another 1 to 102 pages of this particular chapter. So there is a system in place where individual chapters can be revised as amendments. The amendment replaces the existing chapter, but a new book that is published which replaces it. So it remains NBC 2016 with amendment number say 1 in 2021, replacing a particular chapter and completely revamping it. So that is possible. So what I would suggest that we have interactions, as many interactions as you would like to have, and we involve our existing experts which are already there and associate more of them. Because today because you were founded in 2015 only. We started our chapter in 2014. So you must not have been active at that particular time. So you were not there. You could also be there. So that's my summation, and please let me know what more BIS has to do for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pant. Thank you very much for talking about all the aspects related to the National Building Code and how they need to be reviewed and modified going forward in the light of the discussions that are going on. Thank you so much, sir. I would now request Mr. Asit Kadian to take the floor, has the next speaker on the interactive session. But before Mr. Kadyan speaks, I would like to first thank him for the excellent presentation that he made. And some of the key takeaways for me were the fact that solutions need to be specifically or designed for each type of requirement, and they need to be customized for individual needs. And also what came out was that the residential building requirements may be different from that of a shopping mall or from a cluster of houses, and different for office complexes. So this makes the in-building solution requirements even more complex than what we were discussing earlier. Also, I think from drawing from what Secretary Saab mentioned, that is while the in-building infrastructure requirement is going to technology is going to be only there for about 4 to 5 years, as its life cycle indicates. The building life is going to be about 50 years. So how do we, keeping in view these multiple kinds of requirements, and keeping in view that technology is going to evolve over time, how do we ensure that the bylaws, building bylaws and the building codes be structured in such a way that they are not only neutral, technology neutral, but they are also neutral to that whole type of building, but also time independent. That means they can last for irrespective, as long as the building is there, which is going to be for at least 50 years. So how do we take care of such challenges going forward? This is my humble question to Asit Kadyanji. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Devashiji. I have already spoken for more than 15 minutes, and I think it would have been better that we would have taken questions and used this time for answering those questions. So I will be brief. I will add only a few points. So one part is that prescribe the solutions and try to make an attempt to prescribe the solution. Second is that devise a mechanism that how we will evolve to a solution. So problem is contextual. It is very difficult even for the residential buildings to come up with a generic solution which is applicable for all kinds of residential buildings. 8-story, 10-story buildings and 30-story buildings or 50-story buildings, a huge campus. It is difficult. And buildings will not solve only their own problem. Buildings can solve the neighborhood problem. So when you design a network, if you consider the cluster of the buildings, cluster of the societies, probably part of my building, part of my society's problems will be solved by the neighboring society. So it is not limited to that society that you solve your problem. It is, we have to come together and solve our problem. So we should develop the mechanism. We should not attempt to prescribe the solution. And one example I would like to quote, and that is related to Delhi Airport. Delhi Airport was renovated sometime in 2010. And this airport metro was also launched in 2011. And broadband wireless access spectrum was also auctioned in 2010. So all airport building developers or airport people, this Aero City this metro train people should have been aware that 4G is around the corner. And they should consider the 4G technology while they are coming up with a solution. Till 2019, their infrastructure was not upgraded for 4G. Not for the airport, Delhi Airport, T3 International Airport, not for the airport metro. Why it has happened? Why they have not considered 4G as a part of their requirement? So who should have told them that 4G is coming up? They should consider the 4G requirement. Solution should be 4G capable. If new band, 2300 band was assigned or allocated by the DOT to some operator, who is supposed to act in a timely manner that their solution meets the requirement of a new spectrum band. So 4G may be available, but 4G with not full capacity. So whatever capacity is available with the lower band that is being offered, it is not a complete capacity which is available outside the building. So outside building, you are having a good 4G, but inside building you are not having 4G despite having a good infrastructure, because that was not upgraded, that was not expanded. So life cycle is important. And for life cycle, it is not the duct, it is not the enclosure which is important. It is that attitude and that commitment to serve the customers. That is important. So many building specifications or builders will specify that there will be a telecom entrance room of 10 by 10 square feet. We will think that it is a good requirement, good specification, that there is some room. And there may be equipment which don't require a room. It can be installed anywhere. It can be installed on the top of the building. It can be installed, mounted on the walls. But whenever charges are decided, those will be computed on the basis of the size of the room. So per square feet will be multiplied by the total square feet, and that will be charged. Though telcos are not requiring that space, only builder has designed or developed that requirement, assuming that this is the requirement.
Correct.
So requirements were not considered. People were not engaged. All the stakeholders were not engaged. So one part is that to make an attempt to prescribe the solution. Other is that engage at right time. Consider the requirements of that user. Understand the context and come up with the solution. And then assess that solution, whatever is being designed, will meet the expectations. So that mechanism is important rather than prescribing a solution. So then,
thank you, Asitji. Thank you very much. I would now throw the floor open for questions. Before we come to the raised hands or any verbal questions, I would first like to read out the questions which are in the Q&A box for the to be answered by our participants, our esteemed guests in the interactive session. The first question that I have taken here is from Mr. Subodh, which says, I have read in one article that BSNL announced its plan to build a 5G corridor in Delhi in 2019. However, there has not been any update since then. Is anybody wants to respond to this? If there is somebody from BSNL in the audience, well, I would then park this question. Maybe we could move on to the next question. This is again from Mr. Subodh. What is the impact of over-the-top services on telecom operator business? I think, again, this is a business-related question rather than a question related to the subject that is being discussed today. So maybe we can park it for the time being and ask the relevant operator.
Can you repeat the question, Debu?
Yeah. So the question is, what is the impact of over-the-top OTT services on telecom operator business?
If I may.
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Mr. Bodh, I would just like to suggest that OTT is a big driver for usage of broadband. If we are talking today of 13.5 GB, 13.5 GB per user, which is happening in India in the COVID environment, a lot of it is possible because of OTT applications. You would be using broadband very little if you did not have the applications, OTT, video conferencing, all these. So the people have stopped watching, they're watching TV on OTT, you know. So the big driver for usage for that is OTT or usage of broadband, and OTT players don't have a core network. Therefore, whatever is coming, the benefits of the usage are going only to the operators for telecom. So it should be a win-win situation for both of them. And that's why you are hearing also that more and more telecom operators are also doing that. Telecom operators are setting up digital services company, entirely digital services company, because it's a synergistic combination. They have to go to it. It's a plus for both. That's my view.
Thank you, sir. I move on to the next question, which is from Mr. Lakshmi Narayan. The question is, while moving towards digital connectivity, in spite of having availability and accessibility of a digital platform, it is affordability or the cost which may be one of the key barriers or challenges which need to be taken care of. Asidji, would you like to respond to this question?
Can you repeat?
Should I repeat? Yeah. It says, while moving towards digital connectivity and digital inclusion, in spite of having availability and accessibility of the digital platform, it is affordability or the cost, which is one of the key barriers or challenges which need to be taken care of.
In my opinion, if you develop a system where you allow innovators to play a role and startups to play a role, even for a good quality of service, people will come up with a solution which is affordable. So it is a landscape where you allow people to offer the solutions. If that is permitted, then people will come up and offer you a solution. So affordability is a concern which can be addressed by the ecosystem. So you have a right ecosystem where problem is addressed by some solution provider, some innovator, and barrier should not be for innovator. Affordability will get addressed.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Another point which has been brought about by Mr. Lakshmi Narayan only. He says, while moving forward with Connect India, digital connectivity or inclusion, RWAs and other civil societies will play a key role for better implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, including social auditing. Working with RWAs and CSOs on partnership will perhaps be more helpful to overcome many challenges. Giving a space for these groups will be more effective and efficient with better sustainability. Anybody wants to take this? Asidji, would you like to respond? Should I repeat the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, it's a long question, so let me repeat it. His question is this: while moving forward with Connect India, digital connectivity, RWAs and other civil society organizations will play a key role for better implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, including social auditing. Full stop. Working with RWAs and CSOs, that is civil society organizations, on a partnership mode may be more helpful to overcome many of these challenges. Therefore, giving a space for these groups will be more effective and efficient with better sustainability. Sanjeev ji, would you like to take it? You're on mute, Sanjeev ji. I can't hear you. We have an audio problem. While Sanjeev ji is coming on, Asit ji, would you like to take it on?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
So sometimes we tend to think that auditing or monitoring improves the quality, because we know the problem. Once we know the problem, it will get solved. But in many of the cases, especially in the quality of service, most of the people know the problem. It is not about knowing the problem. It is about solving the problem. So, so if whoever tries or attempts to solve the problem, if RWA finds out that it is a bad quality, it is the RWA who has to come up with the solution. So RWA need not to ask. RWA need to be enabled that they can solve their problem. So whether they can procure the equipment, they can ask somebody to implement the solution and can get it solved. Yes, if they can do, they will solve their problem. It is society's problem. It is community's problem. So, so in my suggestion or my thinking is that we should focus more on solving the problems, enabling players to solve the problem.
Thank you. Sanjeev ji, your thoughts? Are you, can you talk? Ah, there you are. Please go ahead. You're on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Very good. Very good. I think some problem on laptop. Yeah. Sorry for the same. So actually, I completely agree with what Mr. Asit said, and he has a huge experience on this. So for sure, this is an extremely important point that the RWAs will identify, but till we enable them to solve the problem, then that remains a big concern, and just identification doesn't happen. So having said that, I think what Mr. Lakshmi Narayan is also saying is, can they be partnered with? And I do see a bit of value in it, that if they can be partnered, and so when anybody is building those networks, I still believe that there is a scope of neutral operators to come in. Then definitely there can be arrangements that can be made with these RWAs, wherein the operator who is building that network will be responsible in terms of even SLAs or in terms of basic SLAs. The RWAs may not be able to really solve the problem from typical technology issues, but for sure, from customer perspective, they can give a lot of inputs and they can build those SLAs into it. So I do see a lot of value in the partnership with RWAs, and that should play an important role over there.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji. I have two more questions.
First, can I?
Oh, sorry, please come in, Umang ji. Please go ahead.
Devu, I just wanted to add.
Yeah, Umang ji, your voice is not coming through.
Brief first session. Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
I had said in my morning in the morning session, in the earlier session, I had mentioned, considering that this is an opportunity of multi-stakeholders involvement. So just as groups of people resolve their problems themselves and arrive at here with so many stakeholders involved, if we can establish multi-stakeholder action group which meets together, identifies the problem and also arrives at their own solutions, many other things in a self-regulating mechanism can their own answers. When they find an answer and is not within their domain to be able to solve it themselves, they can seek support in how to get it done. So there can be an initial beginning, and that can, in an embryonic manner, expand further. But there is a thought behind groups of people, groups of stakeholders who are all connected. Let us say in this context of in-building, there are builders, there are RWA, there are building managers. So this is not a policy issue. This is more of how do we identify our issue and how do we resolve our issue. And we do it together in a self-regulating mechanism and see how that will be done. And we have kind of connectivity where we don't have to necessarily.
Sorry, we seem to have an audio issue with Mr. Umang Das. My apologies.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. There was a bit of an interruption in your audio. I will move on to the next set of questions.
Okay.
It's from Mr. Arun Deep. We have, the question is, what has been some noticeably successful consumer education strategies for persuading private property owners to permit building of in-building infrastructure in the recent past? Sanjeev ji, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, sure. Can you please repeat that once again?
The question is, what has been some of the noticeably successful consumer education strategies for persuading private property owners to permit building of IBS solutions in the recent past?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is an extremely pertinent issue. And as I think a gentleman from DOT Civil Wing, I think Mr. Sushil Kumar, or maybe I'm mixing on the names.
You're
but
right.
One of the gentlemen said that unless there is a requirement, I think Mr. SK Gupta said, Mr. SK Gupta said that, yeah, that unless there is a requirement, the person doesn't appreciate that. So obviously that is a very important point. And now what is happening is there is a big appreciation that has started happening. In the field today, you can find out buildings where they do believe that my sales will change if I can provide these facilities into the system. IBS are the things that now the builders are calling and asking to the operators. Maybe Dheeraj also can add something on this. Builders are calling and asking that I want IBS solutions here. So that is the good part, that the requirement has gone up big time. In terms of education, I don't think there has been any systematic approach for that. But yes, all the builders are again back into building their own small teams to address this issue of IT and telecom into their buildings. And I think we need to work with them very closely and build this, rather improvise the ecosystem to bring them to that level where they not only look at it as a customer, but also look at it as a solution provider. And as Mr. Asit said before, that if we can enable them, then that can be a big, they can be a big participant in the whole journey.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjeev ji.
Sanjeev,
Over to you, Dheeraj ji.
Yeah,
please.
So I think most messaging or the education strategy right now in this direction, but as an individual service provider, because everyone has a objective to go and roll out in all the large multi-dwelling units, so they approach the customer and they try to go and give them the what kind of products and what kind of benefits are going to the residents and the builders. So I think in that direction, so there is a structured process is there with every provider, but it's not covering the 360-degree requirement of all the buildings, but it is being done. So wherever the rollout is happening for the small cell or for the FTTX, the buildings are being approached and they are being given the what all benefits are going to be there. And I think we are seeing a shift in all the builders and the RWA. They are now approaching the providers. You come, because now the requirements are also changing after the COVID pandemic. But the only thing, the gray area where is there, all the commercial properties where they are being managed by a separate providers. I think there is a little bit of issues are there, because huge money is being demanded because they want to use this as the opportunity to earn the money. I think that's the gray area is there. Otherwise, by and large, I think this process is now evolving, and I think now it's reached to a good stage of maturity.
Thank you, Dheeraj. I come to the last question here. It is from Mr. Vinod. Sorry. Asit ji, please go ahead.
Probably, I will request BIF to arrange another session where builders, architects, trainers, owners, tenants, those people are the speakers and we are the listeners. So means we have spent our time in telecom sector and we have our own experience and our own understanding. But it is better when you listen to them, what they expect from us, how they think that they can solve the problem. So and then we can understand their perspective. And for that purpose, if you can cross-pollinate the perspectives. So today, you can record the conversations and you can convert it into a text, and you can apply your artificial intelligence and machine learning to correlate two conversations, to develop a conversation. So if conversations are happening in a different video conferencing or different places, how you can make them in a thread, whether AI ML can offer you a solution for developing a solution. So cross-pollination of the perspectives is one of the key areas which is required to be worked out. And we need speakers from the other stakeholders. This is also important.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Actually,
Asanji. Very good point.
And I think I've made an excellent point. Noticeably absent today are speakers from that group who are the users, really. So we need to have that. In fact, we were chose chock-a-block already that we could not do anything more this time. I think we'll organize one as you suggest, specifically involving them, and we are not talking, we'll only listen. I think that's a very good suggestion.
So for example, you can have a speaker from Delhi Metro, you can have a speaker from airports, so public infrastructures, from resident associations.
RWA presidents, yeah. We'll do that.
Got it. So with this, I come to the last question, sir, of today's program. It is from one Mr. Vinod. It says it has come to notice that smart meter solution has a potential flaw, having network-enabled SIM, which says remote disconnect. Given the credibility of law enforcement, criminal agents can execute any serious crime with disabled power and walk away unnoticed, leaving no footprint, as any CCTV would not be powered. Couldn't we ban through software or hardware this provision of remote disconnect? This is the question. Anybody would wish to answer this?
Yeah, Devashira, I can take this.
Please, Dheeraj.
Beyond today's subject. But I think any solution which is there, which is a remote monitoring or remote management system, is always come with some level of security or authentication, or whichever way you say, whether the username, password, or whichever way is there. It's not if anything is available on the internet doesn't mean that anyone can go and do anything on the networks. So the applications which are managing these smart meters, they ensure those authentication and the security part, and it's a responsibility of the solution provider, smart meter solution provider, as a IoT provider or whichever way they are providing, and to ensure that security part. So it's beyond the connectivity, and security is critical and is fundamental to any of the solutions, and it has to be there, including smart cities. So nobody should be able to disable it without having a privilege and the rights.
Thank you, Dheeraj. Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to?
Devashish, Mr. Rupesh Rao has had his hand raised for some time.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Mr. Rao, please, can I enable him? Mr. Rao, can you please unmute yourself and talk, please? Because this would be definitely the last question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it was a really very great session, and I've been listening patiently to all the stakeholders here. I am basically into FTTH since last 4-5 years now, and I have actually seen the real troubles and the real challenges that an FTTH operator faces in terms of getting connected to the last mile. Right, there are issues like Dheeraj Sharma raised, that there were demands from the builders to create the infrastructure, and then there is a monopolistic kind of a thinking with the builders, where the builders would like to save his cost of creating the FTTH network, or the IBS, you can say, the in-building solutions. So the in-building solutions cost a lot. It includes your voice, data, and video, all three. So in terms of saving his cost, he pushes this cost onto the telecom providers or the ISPs, so that he saves this cost. So there is a monopolistic situation which is created due to this. So we need to address this very seriously, because there are small players like me who are getting into the FTTH arena and trying to struggle and having a lot of challenges regarding this.
Thank you. Point taken. Thank you, Mr. Rao. Thank you, sir. So, if there are no further raise of hands,
I think you proceed.
We will now request. I would now request Mr. Asit Kadyan to kindly give us the vote of thanks, which was supposed to have been originally done by Secretary. Sorry, the concluding remarks. My apologies. The concluding remarks, which was to be given by Secretary. But since Secretary is not there, sir, we would request you to kindly fill in on his behalf. Please, over to you, Mr. Asit.
Thanks, Devashish. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the speakers who have participated in today's event and attendees from various stakeholders. It was very good interaction, and the difficult part of this whole problem is that the stakeholder comes from different sectors. So if all the stakeholders are from the same sector, coordination is easier. When housing, urban affairs, central government, state government, hierarchical structures are involved, it is very difficult. And this platform where you can interact and you can highlight what are the challenges, what are the difficulties, and there are solution providers who can offer how it can be solved. So it was a very useful interaction, and it is a very good start. And I think this initiative will help us to solve the problem of in building good quality network.
Thank you, Asitji. Now, over to Mr. Dheeraj to give us the final vote of thanks, please.
Thank you, Devashish. So I really feel honored and privileged to get this opportunity for saying vote of thanks on this special day. And so it has been our ambition to host this important workshop and with all the stakeholders, so that we are able to see able to build up a consensus among all the stakeholders on this very, very vital topic of the in-building solution. And I believe this has not been given the due importance in the past. And now everyone sees this is the right time because of the change, the perspective is changing, and the requirement is becoming now is very, very critical part of the requirement for the digital communication. And I would also like to extend my gratitude to Shri Durga Shankar Mishra ji, and from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and who has clearly highlighted his efforts and commitment towards this National Building Code. And also like to convey thanks to S.K. Gupta ji, and who has really enlightened us today, and why the in-building solutions are relevant today, and why they were not relevant in the past when we were there in the low band for the in-building coverage or the voice coverage. And our requirement is moving from the low band to mid band, and then future the multi-millimeter wave band. Then these requirements are becoming not only important, it's going to be critical. It's not going to be possible to go inside the home, inside the buildings, unless until we are having a in-building solutions once we move to the millimeter wave for the higher bandwidth. And our requirement on the wireless also, and even for the rest of the network also, moving from the kilobit to megabit to the gigabit. And what broadband definition used to be 2 megabit, I think surely in maybe next couple of years we'll see the 1 gig is going to be the definition of the broadband. And our requirement when it's increasing to 1,000 times, and the bands are increasing from the maybe 800 megahertz to the maybe whatever millimeter wave band in 2026 or this gigahertz band. I think there is no way we can avoid this in-building solutions. So sooner we work on this, better it is, and then only we'll be able to go to that, embark on that journey. And then thanks to Mr. Srinivas and from Housing and Urban Affairs Ministry and Mr. Sanjay Pant, who has assured their commitment to modify and do the amendment in the building code, whatever the requirements are there, and so that we are able to incorporate the amendments in the the BIS standards also. And the participants who are there, large number of participants are there today in this workshop. I'm sure everyone would have benefited from this workshop, and maybe we'll see some of the more additional workshops, maybe on the various stakeholders, and in incorporating the RWAs, maybe the various agencies, so that we are able to have the cross-pollination, as Asit has very clearly communicated, so that we are able to understand their perspective also. From the telecom side, maybe we understand that area, but I think we need to understand their requirements, their perspective, and their aspirations also, and so that there is a way, there is a middle path is available where we are able to move that. And this we would have not been achieved without the guidance and support of the leadership team here, and all the tireless efforts of the team. And special thanks to, I'm saying without saying, to Mr. TV Ramchandran ji, Umang Das ji, Rajat ji, Arun ji, and Devashish ji, and my colleague Sanjeev. So I think I think with this, I think we can close the session today. And TV Ramchandran ji, anything from your side?
No, thank you very much. I can't thank you all enough for this. I think it has been a very, very useful learning. And this is going to be only the first of a series of workshops we are going to do on this. Particularly your committee, Dheeraj, you and Sanjeev are really dynamos in this FTTX committee. So we are going to do more workshops, and like Asit ji said, we'll listen to the users, the other stakeholders, and try to address the concerns in a more practical way. So I look forward to more of such workshops and more expeditious progress towards better connectivity for all citizens in building. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, TV.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Asit ji. Thanks, Dr. Naran ji. Thanks, Sanjeev ji. Thanks, TV sir. Thanks, Rajat. Thanks, Arun. Thanks, Umang ji.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.